Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the State of the League podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jack, aka JokicJoestar. I'm joined, as always, by the world famous PabloEscoball, and today we are very grateful to be joined by Jackson Frank, a big Twitter presence and a writer for Basketball Insider. Jackson, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here. I can't rival Pablo's festive hat and his throwback wired headphones, but I'm doing
Hmm.
doing my best here.
Hell yeah. I got a comment on the last video. They called you a Sigma, and they called me something analogous to a cuck for not having any holiday cheer in my setup. So I guess you're winning on that front, Pablo. Congratulations.
I swear it wasn't my account. That's just what people think. So maybe buy a hat.
All right, maybe. To
You have the beanie on
It's
already.
true.
I mean, like, would it kill you to swap it out for a Santa hat? They're $5 at
I know. I,
Walgreens.
well, it was like 10 a.m. today, and I was like, "Fuck! I should have ran to Walgreens, gotten like the reindeer antlers or something." But I put a load of laundry in. I got
Oh,
lazy, so you're just getting plain black beanie. I'm a lump of coal. There you go. Congratulations.
okay, that's okay. But yeah, the antlers. Now that would have been cuck behavior because I'm Santa and you're the reindeer.
Get to the fucking stable, pal. Get out of here. All right, on the docket.
Start stretching.
Today we're going to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers, what's going on with them. We have a non-denominational holiday team wish list. Happy holidays, everybody. We're going to talk a little bit about Indiana Pacers versus the Orlando Magic, how we feel about a variety of young players, and then we have a mysterious game that Pablo Escobar has cooked up for us. So, starting off with the 76ers there, my first bullet is just like they started 8-1, and then their big win over the Wizards yesterday fucked up a perfect pattern of win-win, loss-loss, dating all the way back to like November 14th. It was nearly a full month of exactly 500 basketball. So how you feeling about the 76ers, Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think two or three of those losses are two of them I think are without Embiid. And so, I think they're still one of, I would say probably kind of in that leading that second tier of teams in the East to me. I still think Boston and Milwaukee are ahead of them. I know Milwaukee's had some big issues, but their half court offense when they get Dame and Giannis involved and stuff still looks like really, really incredible. The Sixers, I think, Embiid and Maxey, one of the things Nurse has done really well for them is basically like he just gives them as much space as possible above the break to do whatever they want. Their chemistry is really, really impressive. They'll go to the classic middle pick and roll that Harden and Embiid ran a ton last year, but they'll go to more diverse stuff, pistol actions, dribble handoff, stuff that Maxey's speed and off-ball shooting allows them to run that, for everything Harden did well last year, he's just not a very he's a very methodical player, right? He's not much of a movement shooter. So I think Maxi's speed is I would say he's a better scorer at this stage than Harden is of his career. There's a big playmaking gulf. So I like their offense a lot. I think they're still probably a ball handler short. I know they're second in offensive rating, but they're fifth in the half court, which is still very good. But I do have some worries, kind of, if there's been some crunch time foibles at times because they'll put one guy behind Embiid and then one guy in front and kind of sandwich him and there's not really in Max. He's a better passer than he's been in prior years, but he's still not somebody who's going to pick apart and find every single angle like someone like Harden could. So it doesn't have the release valve of himself like Harden did last year. Right? If they double Embiid, you swing the ball to Maxey, it's like yeah, they got a three or a straight line drive. So I think they're kind of in that second tier, but they do have they did kind of reload the draft capital in the Harden deal, so they have the means, and they have a lot of expiring contracts as well. So they have the means to upgrade maybe one more ball handler, maybe improve the defense a little bit. And the defense has been pretty shoddy during this stretch that you mentioned. So I kind of feel like they're maybe a little worse than last year in terms of ceiling, but overall kind of in the same spot.
Damn, extremely insightful stuff. Pablo, you got any rebuttals for that?
No, I mean, I was just looking at their numbers right now on NBA.com. They're number one in net rating, I
Damn.
think, above the Celtics. Number two offense, number nine defense. Yeah, the one of the things I noticed is what's it called? Yeah, like you mentioned, Harden way different this year. They're 13th in pace. Last year they were like 27th, and so they're only behind the Pacers in offense. So how much is that pace contributing to the offensive explosion,
Yeah,
to
I
them
think
being dominant?
beyond just kind of the more space that Nurse is, given them with the way he positions players, they like to flatten out a lot rather than like having two guys in the wing and one in the dunker spot. They put two in the corners and then the one in the dunker spot, so they have all that room. The other thing is they get Max the ball and the move a lot more than I think there's a lot of things you can criticize Doc for, and I think maybe some of it last year specifically is overblown. But that was one of my biggest qualms with him is he didn't get the ball to Maxey on the move enough, whether it's downhill or using him as a movement shooter. I think that's something they do really well. It's just simple sets too, like getting the like he's just such a he's a 3 level scorer at this point, and it's hard for defenses to guard if he gets half a step. So I think that's been the biggest thing is playing quicker, getting into their actions more, and Embiid's handling the ball more in the middle of the floor. I know there's been a lot made about kind of like him taking a playmaking leap, Embiid, and I think some of that's true, but I also think it's him just handling the ball more.
Yeah.
I think we saw a lot of this during the year that Simmons sat out before they acquired Harden. I don't think his assist numbers were quite as good, but his assist rate was definitely higher than it was during the year and a half with Harden. So I think the pace helps them a lot. It's helped Tobias Harris. I know he's kind of ebbed and flowed, but he's a guy who is pretty good in transition for all of his issues. Is pretty strong and fluid for a guy of that size. Does kind of actually take some contact on in transition, not in the half court as much, but I think that's helped. It's helped a guy like Oubre as well when he's been available. Even Melton, when Melton's taking spot at threes in the break, that's good. When he's trying to finish, it is like a disaster. I think it's corrected a little bit, but there was at one point he was shooting like 29% of layups and like 40% from three, which seems
Yeah,
like
I
you would
was gonna
have to you would,
say Pablo had a
you would have
video
to try
where
to do that.
like he was the worst. I know Fred VanVleet was third worst finisher in the
He
league,
was
the Anthony
third
Melton,
worst.
and yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty
Yeah,
jarring.
It's him,
yeah,
Vincenzo,
and
and
and it's
then
funny
Van
because like
Vliet.
I think to an
So
extent
not
like
great company.
Van Vliet's just limited by his size and physical tools. Melton like it's just like he just gets too big for his britches sometimes. Like he's not, he's only like 6'2", but he's pretty bouncy, has a good wingspan. But like he just tries some stuff, and
Hmm.
you're trying to be Giannis, and that doesn't that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the pace has helped them kind of get in some actions quicker, and then like I said, there's just so much stuff that Embiid and Maxey can do that you know. I think I might have been wrong about this, but I said earlier in the year that like maybe their ceiling as a duo offensively wasn't as high as Harden and Embiid, which might have ended up being wrong. Especially we'll see what happens in the playoffs. But the big difference is just the diversity of stuff they can run, right? Like Embiid and Harden beat you because they could basically beat any pick and roll coverage. But that was basically all they did together. Maxey and Embiid are more like just there's so many different actions they can run now. So I think the pace definitely contributes. Um, but yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that Nick Nurse has done well, and they have a lot more. There's a lot more depth at the wing spot in the rotation, which helps. Batum's been such a huge. I mean, he's basically playing the PJ Tucker role, but he can do more than like make one corner three a game and crash the offensive glass. And I think Tucker did some good stuff, but obviously, given kind of the stuff they tried to move around and they got charged for tampering and all that, it wasn't worth that. And Batum, he can shoot above the break. He's got a much quicker release. If teams ignore him in the weak corner, he can flash to the middle, and they'll actually guard him because he can hit an open jumper from the free throw line and
Hmm.
has a higher release. He's better guarding up. He can actually play that small ball center role a little bit, whereas I think Tucker at this point in his career is more like an in theory small ball guy. He's just too small and limited, vertically. So yeah, I think they definitely got more options, but I just don't know if that high end talent is where it was last year when you have an MVP candidate, a guy who played like an All Star, All NBA player in Harden, and then I don't think Maxey was an All Star level guy last year, but was a top 50-ish player, whereas this year that third star, third really good player, just don't know where it comes from right now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it'll be Kelly Oubre. He'll just average 20 the whole season, I don't know how sustainable
Hmm.
that is. But I think the thing that's jumped out to me the most about Philadelphia is you touched on it, not Embiid's like step forward in the plays he's capable of making, but getting him to spots on the floor with the ball where like the ball just doesn't stick nearly as much in Philadelphia's offense as it was last season. It
Mhm.
flies around the floor and it generates like I won't say it completely supplements Harden's playmaking ability, because he's one of the best in the league at passing the basketball. but just like having a complete 180 where your whole team's ball movement is like way better. And Maxi's another guy who you're replacing Harden big time of possession, and now Maxi, he moves the ball really quickly. He makes a lot of very fast decisions. He's either looking to score or he's moving off the ball. And so when you get your team into a position like that, I feel like it does take a big step forward in making up for that playmaking loss when you lose Harden. Just having like a whole team of guys who are capable of making the extra pass, I think that leads to a lot of good looks. And then the two-man game with Maxi and Embiid, it's probably not as effective as the Harden Embiid two-man game from like a points per possession perspective or whatever, but it does feel a lot less predictable. And first of all, more fun to watch. I will say that. And second of all, I don't know, in the playoffs, maybe that will lead to a higher degree of success just because, like, I don't know, speaking from the shit I watched, the Jokic Murray two-man game, that's one of the most unpredictable things in the league, just in terms of it's two guys who can hit a lot of tough shots from a variety of different spots around the floor. And that's kind of the vibe I get from Maxi playing off of Embiid. They both understand how to capitalize off the gravity of the other player really well, and it opens up a lot of like easy looks for both of them. It feels like when you get Maxi going downhill, that elbow jumper for Embiid is constantly wide open, and that's lethal. Like if you're a defense, that'll just take the wind out of your sails so quickly. And then conversely, Embiid catching the ball on the wing and then running a little off-ball action for Maxi to get open for a catch and shoot three. That's yeah, it's been extremely entertaining offense, even if it hasn't taken a big step forward, which I mean, it might have. Number two in the league. I don't know what they were last year. It's definitely felt like they have revolutionized their approach to scoring the basketball.
I think they were top five last year, but they were like number one or two once Harden came back because he missed like the that month or whatever with a tendon strain in his foot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I agree. I think like the other thing too with when I bring up Batum is part of the reason their offense kind of faltered in that series against the Celtics beyond Harden's own questionable decision making and Embiid's shot making kind of falling off a cliff was that the Celtics, whenever they would bring like an aggressive low man off of Tucker, the Sixers weren't always just going to throw the ball to PJ Tucker because one, he might not even get a shot off because they had Robert Williams flying back at him and he has that really slow release. And two, like he also might just look to try and pass to someone who's already covered. Whereas with Batum, you've got one, like it's easier for him to get the shot off. Two, he can do more with it, right? He's not like a big guy who's going to attack closeouts, but he can dribble a little bit, like find a cutter or something like that. Whereas that's not something you have with Tucker. So I am curious whenever the playoffs do get a roll around, whatever the roster and rotation look like, how that dynamic works because there is a chance that they end up facing the Celtics again in the first or second round, something like that. If it's a 2-3, 1-4, whatever it is, and it's going to be it's the same coaches last year with the Celtics. It's a different roster, of course. There's no Rob Williams,
Mm-hmm.
but they've also shown a willingness already in Boston to put Porzingis on kind of the worst shooter on the floor, and in the starting lineup, that's still going to be Nicholas Batum or Nico Batum, even if he is a much better shooter than someone like PJ Tucker. So that's kind of what I'm monitoring to see what that'll look like come the playoff. But we're still 4.5, 5 months away from that sort of being a really relevant thing to address.
Yeah, it's a pretty wing heavy roster, right? How do you feel about the big men
I
depth?
think
Are
they're
you
okay,
worried at all?
honestly,
Or are you like,
because
we're cool?
Embiid, is or has arguably been the best regular season player the last 3 or 4 years. Doesn't mean he's been the best player in the world, but regular season wise, dating back to 2021, I would say he has as good a case as anyone. Him and Jokic are up there. But even the playoffs, he's going to play 38, 40 minutes. It might not be what you want from your MVP center, but he's going to play those minutes. I think Paul Reed's been solid this year. I know he's been a little mistake prone at times, but I think he's a perfectly fine backup center. To me, I think they really need to address that ball handling depth. Like I said, like they just need a little more diversity. The non maxi minutes with Embiid, I don't know what the numbers are. I'm sure they've been fine this year because they've had their schedule's been overall whatever, but they've also had some games against some crappy teams. With the Wizards 3 times already,
Yeah.
with the Pistons already. Like when that's 4 out of your 22 games, I think the numbers are probably going to help. But Melton's not a guy you want handling the ball. I think you've seen that throughout his career. It's not his strong suit, even if he's a solid role player. I just think they need one other guy you can trust. I don't know where that comes from, but I know there's been some Sixers fans talking about wanting to improve the defense, which I don't think is a bad thing to target at the trade deadline. But I also think it's harder to really find a legit difference maker on the perimeter defensively in the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs via the trade market than it is another ball handler. I think there's just a level of steadiness you can find in a ball handler that can, run a pick and roll with Embiid, get him the ball in the spots, than say it is like, really fluster a Tatum or a Dame or a Chris Middleton. You get to the finals, a Booker, a Murray, an Aaron Gordon. I know Gordon's been struggling this year, but he's still a guy who was very good last year, who's kind of creating at mismatches. So um, that's kind of the where I just think it's way harder to find a difference maker defensively. And granted, there might be one on the market, Alex Caruso. Like if that's a guy that ends up being available, then of course he's someone you should be going after because for my money he's the best perimeter defender in the league. And I think he's a legit difference maker in a way that even some of the really good guard or wing defenders that focus on the perimeter can't really copy. I think that's really hard to be a legit difference maker. And there's only a handful of them like that, around the NBA on the perimeter.
Could Jaden Springer
If Jaden Springer can ever
possibly
figure out the
emerge?
offense,
They have
as
him
a
right
as a
there.
useful
When are we
complementary
getting
guy, I
Jaden
think
Springer?
there's something there. But at the same time, I think he's better than Patrick Beverley as an on-ball defender. But Beverley gives you some more ball handling. He's been shooting the ball better lately. It's still a useful defender because he applies some pressure. But yeah, I think the Sixers hope that Springer's offense would have come around a little more so far this year because the defense is really, really impressive. It's not just on the ball. I mean, he makes some rotations on the backside, plays the passing lanes. He and Furkan Korkmaz when the Sixers are up 30 are a pretty fun garbage time duo to watch. I don't know if either of you saw yesterday. Furkan had a ridiculous full court outlet pass to Springer. Like he caught the ball on a rebound and threw it over like the entire defense. It was like
No.
I don't know. He's got some of the best career highlights for a guy who's never been a full-time rotation player. Really,
It was so. Oh my god.
How's his morale?
I think the
What's
funniest part of the whole
status
thing is he
of the
re-signed with the
trade
Sixers after he
request?
asked for the first one.
Yeah.
Like he just feels a little defeated. I mean, they'll always have. I think the year of the Ben Simmons holdout, he was really good in like November, and then he forgot how to shoot again, and they never really came back around, unfortunately. But yeah, we're on Creative Quest 2 or 3, and he's a second longest tenured Sixer behind Joel Embiid.
That's actually crazy. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Furkan Korkmaz, man. It's funny. I was like, I knew this pod was coming up, and so yesterday I was like, I'm gonna make it a point. I'm gonna really tap into this Wizards game. And like literally within like 15 minutes after tip, I was like, oh, this is the fifth worst game on right now. Like this is absolute bottom of the barrel. Embiid, I looked it up. He's averaging 39 points on like 70% true shooting through his last 8 matchups with the Wizards. Like I don't know what it is. He just nukes them every time. And I mean, albeit it's the Wizards, like they're not good, but even for that standard, like I don't know. Every time I've seen him play against Washington, he has just gone off. And so it was like that again last night, 34, 10, and 6. And 50-point dub for Philly.
Minutes. Yeah. Gafford didn't play last night, but whenever Joel Embiid retired, Gafford's gonna pop champagne. Like I've watched so many Wizards games where Embiid just bullies him and whatnot. But yeah, I hadn't watched I had watched some of the games casually. Obviously, living in Philly, they're on at bars and stuff. But I hadn't watched a game where I take notes on them in like a week or so. So I was like, okay, this morning I'll watch it, and I was like what? Like I'm not learning it. Like I'll learn. Like I kind of get the I'm just confirming my priors about this team that I already knew. Like I'm not learning anything new about them. Like the Wizards just like offer no resistance. Like I know they're a limited team defensively, but like there was no physicality or anything. I'm just watching to see like if Bilal Coulibaly is gonna have any like fun flashes. Other than that, it's like there's really not much. And maybe we'll talk about him later. Maybe Denny Avdia has some more flashes, but that's it's tough in Wizards land these days.
Does guarding the Jordan
there was a play at the end of that
first
half.
Playoffs. We'll see.
There was a play at the end of the first half where Poole caught it and then like tried to like pass out of like 2 seconds left and the clock expired and they're walking back to the locker room and Kuzma was like, shoot it. Like there was like you could tell Kuzma was just like, man, like been a tough couple months for that guy. At least they both have their ring, you know.
Yeah,
At least they got that sitting at home on their mantles, so they can enjoy that. But yeah,
yeah.
I feel a
One
little
of the
bad for a lot
Yeah.
of
things
those guys.
that jumps out to me about Jordan Poole, not that we need to have a big conversation about the Wizards or anything. It's just like in terms of a mentality shift, like he catches the ball in spots where he used to be really good, and then like his processing, he just like his first shot is like, or his first thought is, I don't want to mess up. And then like 3 seconds later, he's like, oh, that would have been a sick decision. Like there was a good swing pass I could have made for a wide open three. I was open. I could have shot it. I know I'm capable of that shot. And it ends up, it's just like 2.5 seconds of him catching and analyzing when there's like a very clear choice that should have been made already. And yeah, it's not easy to win games when you're playing basketball like that. Shout out to the Wizards.
Yeah, that was a lot of Wizards and Jordan Poole talk for this this podcast.
Oh man.
More than I anticipated today.
Yeah, I don't know. He's fun. He's silly. It's one of the silliest teams in the league, no question. The tunnel walk's always fun. A lot of weird clothes going on, but in terms of basketball, you can learn from very little going down in our nation's capital. Last question I had was just like, do you lend any credence at all to the idea that Embiid might demand a trade? That was like a big rumor before the Harden shit got settled, and now it's been like radio silence. I don't think it would happen. It feels like he really likes Philadelphia and wants to like do as well as he can there. But I just felt I'd gauge the situation with you.
Right now, nothing feels anywhere close to imminent. I really do parallel it to the Lillard situation. I just think like Lillard. I mean, he still like I would assume still has a big heart for Portland and its community and the organization. But maybe at some point, if they continue to falter, Embiid could ask out. But right now, I don't see that as any sort of threat or worry for them. They're 15-7, game and a half back with the 1 seed, and they've got flexibility both in the current term or the interim, and then long in the summer with the expiring contracts and the draft picks. So I would say right now they feel like they're in a good spot. Maxi's still only in his fourth year. He's what, 23, 24. You've still got a couple of years until he's really in his prime, and Embiid looks like he's playing as well as ever. I feel like every year the last 4 years, it's like, oh, this is how high he's going to peak, and then he comes back and has added a little something to his game in the regular season. Again, for him and the Sixers to go where they want to go, he's going to have to carry that beyond the first round of the playoffs, stay healthy. But no, I don't think they're that. I don't think there's any worry there, just because they do have so much more flexibility than it seemed like they might have with the Harden thing 2 or 3 months ago.
Yes, masterful gambit, Mr. Maury. Yeah, well,
Yeah, regrettably, you gotta hand him that one.
definitely. All right, Pablo. I mean, if you don't have any closing thoughts on the Sixers, we can kind of migrate into our team wish lists for the holiday seasons. Any presents that different franchises might be longing for from old Saint Nick. Pablo, do you want to like open with your first present idea?
Mm. Okay, so my first present is that I wish for the Bulls to blow it up. Please free me from my misery. How many reports am I gonna have to like? I'm still getting alerts that say, DeRozan and the Bulls, they're far apart on extension talks. I'm like, extension talks for what? For what? It's so cooked. It's so beyond cooked. There's nothing left. They've milked these players dry. I feel like none of them have any value. This is like the closest we've gotten to trading Zach LaVine, and this is by far the lowest his trade value has ever been. It's a complete disaster. Please just free me. I will not be stingy about the return. We just need to get on track. We need to start losing. We need to get in the Alex Sarr sweepstakes. Please, please just trade Levine, trade DeRozan, trade Caruso. I'll give Caruso to anyone. I'll give him to the Bucks for nothing just because I want to see it. I'm so far beyond. Arturas Karnisovas no better than Garpax. That's what I would want him to
Hell
get
yeah.
fired, but I don't
My
know.
first bullet was
That won't happen. So
Bulls
for
are
now, I'm
wishing
just
for
hoping for
suckers in the
blown it
trade
up.
market. Just get as much value back as possible. And that's all I wrote. I don't know. We've touched on it multiple times on this podcast, like how like that's the team in the league. Now that the Wizards have blown it up and they're off the Beal era, it's clearly the Bulls are the team that team is not doing anything, man. And I just saw a report maybe 20 minutes before this podcast where it was like the Bulls are really in the market for win now pieces. They're really looking for guys who can come in and contribute to a winning culture and maybe like push them over the hump back into playoff contention or something. And yeah, it's never going to happen. It's hilarious every day that they continue trying to make it work. And if they had like realized it a year and a half ago, the nest egg you get for like I don't know, Levine when he still had value, Vucevic before he proved that he wasn't good anymore. Caruso, I think, will still be pretty, like, if you get a little bidding war going on for him, kind of a la Drew Holiday, I think he'll get a nice little return. But yeah,
Yeah.
everybody else that you gave up assets to get on your team is not really worth nearly what you did to put them there. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think just like cleaning the slate with nothing and having just Patrick Williams shoot 20 times a game would be better than what's happening right
Let
now.
me Let me tell you, I had a thought. I thought about this while watching Bronny's debut. It was like, because Bronny's debut, like in the first whatever, like right away, he was flying around on defense. He looked so legit. I was like, this is an NBA player. And then I started thinking, what if the Bulls front office watches this and they think, okay, we could draft him in the first round at some point, and then he can get LeBron to come here. And so maybe we should keep DeRozan, Levine, Caruso, everyone. We should keep them to
Caruso
be
played with them
the supporting
before.
cast
Levine's
for
a clutch
LeBron
client.
when he gets here. I'm like, that's literally
Vooch and
not a
DeRozan went to
crazy plan
USC,
for
which is where Bronny
those people
go.
to
Holy
have.
shit! Damn, we need to get
Yeah.
like a
Oh
big
my god, it's a
whiteboard
big
going, a
city.
conspiracy
To
board.
close
Holy
out his
fuck, that's
Yeah,
career.
crazy.
we can be the
Oh,
Charlie Day moment.
oh my god. Tweet it.
That 4-game winning streak with the
Tweet
Bulls
it,
is like
Jackson.
when
Tweet
you go
that
to the bar and you have
anonymous
like
source
2
told you
drinks
that
and
the
you said
Bulls
you're
are
gonna go home
planning this.
after that
I'm
second one,
the
and then
source.
they're like, oh, 4 games, we won 4 games in a row. We're right back in it. We can get to the play-in again. For me, let's see. I mean, there's a lot of different wish lists. I think for me, I would like for whatever Steve Kerr has against Moses Moody, whatever blackmail is out there, I would like for that to just be out in the public at this point. They need more range and wing and athleticism on the wings. They are such a slow and old team, and Moody, every time I watch him, seems like he does something well on both ends and processes things quickly. Even like I don't think Kuminga's been very impressive for the most part. I think he was pretty impressive against the Blazers last week when they came back and won that game. But like just at least play both of them more because they just so clearly need like more liveliness and range and athleticism on the wings
Mm-hmm.
because they are just so devoid of all of that. So I'd like for them to play more. But yes, whatever blackmail is out there, like for Moody to just accept it and and just leak it himself. Whatever Steve Kerr has on him, like just fall on
Embrace
your
it.
own sword, and then he'll get 18 minutes a night, and the Warriors will go from 10 and 12 or whatever they are, and they'll win 8 games in a row, and they'll be right back there. So. Yeah, but Lake Up's still there.
If
We
he
don't know.
learns
We
Chinese,
don't know.
will he
I
get
guess
back
we
into the?
again
Oh wait, Bob
once Bob
Myers is
Myers calling
gone,
his
so
next
maybe
game,
that power has
I will
dissipated.
go ask him in person what he thinks of the Mandarin language, and I'll figure out if it was him or Lake Up. That was. I will hand him a I'll
much?
hand him a resume,
How
and
important is the
There you
is
go.
knowing
lie that I'm
Mandarin in your
fluent in
evaluation
Mandarin
of
and see
players these days?
You're
if I can
hired.
be his
There's a big
intern.
man in China now.
But yeah, that would be my big one. I think a lot of people are way overblown with their criticism of Steve Kerr. The guy has helped win 4 rings and seems to be
Mm-hmm.
quite good at managing personalities, which is ultimately usually the most important part of coaching. But this does seem really weird, especially because the dynasty is on the decline, and they just clearly are devoid of a lot of what Moody brings, and even what Kuminga can bring. And if I think he's more limited than Moody, so I would like for Moody to play a lot more because I think he would help them and fits in well to kind of what they want to do. Like he's a kind of a pass, dribble, shoot guy, pretty good defensively, makes quick decisions.
It's
That all
literally
works
just
well
the
off the
threat
stuff.
of having someone on the Warriors who will run fast, like move quickly
Yeah.
without like that's not
Yes.
Steph Curry. It's insane to watch them play basketball and like it looks like a walkthrough on some half court possessions, which is like people standing around and then Steph running as hard as he possibly can to do anything. And so yeah, I don't know. I tuned in. There was a Warriors game. I don't remember who exactly it was against. Might have been the Thunder. Feels like they played each other a lot this season.
Yeah.
Where Moody had like 12, 15 points in the third quarter and then got benched to start the fourth and did not see the floor again. And the Warriors ended up
I think that
losing.
was that the Kings game, the in-season tournament one?
It
Might have
might have
been that
been,
one. I think
yeah, where
on
they just completely
the Monk game
smoked it.
winner, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
they benched him for like Wiggins and Clay, and both of them have been like really, really bad this year.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah. Honestly, it could have happened in multiple games. We could have each caught it. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I think that's like probably the biggest gap just in terms of like starter versus backup athleticism or even just like on ball dynamic creation is Klay Thompson versus Moody, where Klay, I mean, if you get Klay to dribble like 3 times and put his shoulder into somebody before putting up the turnaround fadeaway, that's like a success in my opinion. Like that's about the extent of creation you're looking from with Klay Thompson at this point. And I don't know. Shout out to Draymond Green, 45% from 3. Like if the Warriors were good around him, I feel like that'd be the storyline of the season. It's like, oh man, Dre can space the floor again. Oh my god, but they aren't. So like it's just completely flown under the radar. He's been fine by his offensive standards. He's been solid.
I can't verify this. Let me try and look, but I'm pretty sure I saw some stat that like he's shooting ridiculously well from 3 in the first quarter and then like terribly in every other quarter. I wonder if I can find this split while we continue talking about other stuff, but I swear I saw this on Twitter because he hit like 3 or 4 against the Clippers like a week and a half ago and then didn't make another one. I think they brought that one up. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah,
but,
I know he took
he
took a game winner in maybe the Kings game. It was a big game. It was like yeah, obviously a game winner. He shot
No, it was that Clippers game when they blew that like 20-point lead. He took the game winner in the corner for some reason.
And it was not close. He was just like the ball left his hands and they immediately went to the top of his head just like, "Oh my god, what am I doing?" Oh man, yeah. But Steve Kerr, if you're listening, pull an Eminem from 8 Mile. Just embrace your flaws. Get on the mic. Let everyone know whatever blackmail Klay Thompson has. And yeah, get Moody out there. You guys fucking need it. The first gift I had was the Pelicans are begging for a motivated Zion Williamson to play basketball for them. I said they should build a clause into his contract that he gets to be a scumbag all summer. Whatever debauchery he wants to engage in is completely fine if he finishes like top 5 in points per game. Because it feels, when I watch the Pelicans play, it feels like this roster that has all of the tools to really support an offensive presence on par with the best scorers in the league. Like it feels like there's a hole at the middle of their roster where 27 points per game would fit pretty snugly, and they've been fine. Like they're afloat. They're around 500, and he just lit up Minnesota last night in a very impressive outing. And when you watch him play like that against the best defense in the world, it's like, dude, please continue doing this. That would rock if you're New Orleans. So that's what's on their wish list.
That was my
just wanted
number
to circle
2.
back. Draymond has not hit a 3 in the second half this year. He is 58% in the first half and is 0% in the second half, according to this NBA stats quick search.
Perfect.
Which seems like,
thanks, Draymond.
That is nuts. I wonder what that is. Like, I guess. Oh no, I literally have no clue. Is it just because he's shooting around and he gets more practice before the games and then he just cools down? That is bizarre.
Know. Maybe the team's just
but yeah,
like a little hand up in the second half. They're like, dude, you know what? Close out on him now. And like it completely changes the level at which he's playing.
Oh, he could shoot with 8 feet of space, but not 6 feet of
Yeah.
space. Yeah, my number two thing was the same exact one as 100% commitment from Zion. And so, listen, I'm still holding out hope. One day we're gonna see Zion play defense again. One day, it's like the Loch Ness monster. If you tell people you've seen it, they're like, "You're crazy." What? But I saw it. I swear I saw it back in 19, and it'll happen one day. So I'm holding out hope.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that he gets to be a scumbag if he does. He gets sloppy steaks at Truffaut's if he for all my I think he should leave for,
Hell
fans.
yeah. They can't stop you from
Yeah,
getting a steak
he's
in the
had
water.
such a weird year. Just like you said, he's just oscillated between some of that dominance we saw last year and we've seen in prior years, and games like Tuesday, I think, or Thursday against the Lakers, where he looks like he wants to be anywhere but on an NBA basketball court, and is lethargic on both ends. But even beyond, I don't know, I think there's probably some combination of like not being the sort of condition he needs to be, and also just like the lower body injury after lower body injury taking a
Mhm.
toll on him, but he just hasn't looked as explosive. And some of the traits that make him so good, like his ball handling, that hasn't looked as good as last year. One of the things that makes him so great is like he can just kind of fit through a keyhole despite being 270 pounds, or whatever it is. And this year hasn't felt like he's been as good in those small spaces. So, um, yeah, I think the Pelicans last year when they were healthy, I thought were a team that could win a playoff series. I think they had some flaws with their defense and a little bit of shooting to be better than that, but they were leading the West for a bit.
Mhm.
And I would just like for that Zion to return, and it feels like he knows it can still be in there. Like you said, he was excellent last night against, obviously a team, Jaden first coming back and Ant not playing for the Wolves, but still has, what most people consider the defensive player of the year right now, Rudy Gobert, um, and just gave them business. So, yeah, I would like for that to happen too, because he's a guy that I feel like I've largely been very, sympathetic of and defended throughout his career. I think he's overly scrutinized, but this year it's been a bummer to kind of watch the way he approaches, the games, at times, because clearly there's a switch that can and has been flipped to do what he's done, at least 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Or you mentioned that game, against the Wolves, when Embiid sat out against them a couple weeks ago, he had like 33 points. I think he missed one shot, and the one shot he missed was like it was like a debate whether it was actually a shot. I
Mhm.
think he took like 12 shots or something like that, like 33 points. So clearly, and granted, I mean, he's in that game, he was going against like Marcus Morris and Mo Bamba, and Paul Reed is not the most staunch of rim protectors, but still 33 points and like perfect shooting. No matter how you slice that, it's quite impressive. So clearly, it's in there somewhere, and I just hope that he can find whatever he needs to bring that out on a consistent basis, because he and the Pelicans will be, I think, really, really good for it with them kind of getting healthy again. Trey Murphy's back and looks good. CJ looks pretty good as a complimentary guy. I think Ingram's kind of figuring out how to pick his spots again, because he kind of had to carry the load a lot the last couple of years, and even to start this year with Zion out. But yeah, I like this team a lot if they can get Zion back to the top 15, top 10 level he was at last season. But we haven't seen that enough yet, and I think that the Pelicans could make some noise in the West if it gets back to that level. At the very least, the All Star level. I think that would really even
Yeah.
elevate their ceiling. Versus now, he's just I don't know. He to me feels a little bit like Zach Levine, not in the same, but like where you can just see the flashes, but it's not consistent, and you see how he looks like an All Star and All NBA player at times, and then he just is an onlooker for stretches, and you're like, why does it have to be like this? And I don't know what's going on, but that's what it reminds me of. So I don't think he's even been an All Star caliber player, despite some of the numbers still looking pretty solid.
Yeah, I saw a tweet yesterday before the Wolves game, and it was like a guy who was really like riding for Zion, and he was like, "How can Zion be having a bad year? He's outscoring Julius Randle, Zach Levine, DeMar DeRozan, Carl Anthony Towns," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, like he's averaging more points than these guys." We were like having like Zion versus Giannis scoring at the rim talks a couple years ago, and
Yeah.
now we're in like DeMar DeRozan conversations, and so it is very Zach Levine esque in the same way that if this continues for as long as Zach Levine's kind of been in this area, it's pretty exhausting to continually defend them. I was a huge Zach Levine guy for forever, and like I would push him into conversations where I knew he probably shouldn't be, but he was 27 points per game on 50, 40, 90 that one season. He was good before DeMar got there. And yeah, I think if you get that version of Zion, especially in a playoff series, it gives the Pelicans that like repeatable floor of an offense that it can really help you get through the shooting stretches that a team like this might become susceptible to, where you just like can't hit a jumper. But if you have a guy who can go get a layup or a dunk every trip down the floor, or just like routinely generate good looks for the whole team just by being so good at scoring the basketball, we know Zion can be. That makes him. I wouldn't want to play him in the first round. But if you get this version of Zion, with the way the West is shaking out, how every like the bottom half of the playoffs is going to be bullshit in terms of like the good matchup is Kawhi Leonard or something. The Pelicans wouldn't be the worst first round draw in the world if you're getting this version of Zion.
Yeah, and I saw that tweet too, and I think the issue is like some of the like I think it feels like to me some of the backlash about people who are saying Zion's having an outright bad season.
Mm-hmm.
He's not having a bad like he's still having a positive impact on the Pelicans
Mhm.
overall, but the level we last saw him at last season was a guy who I think was a clear All NBA player who was rivaling for that top 10 status,
Yeah.
and it just hasn't been that. So yeah, I definitely agree with those statements. And the issue too is if Zion's going to be so selective when he picks his spots, whether it's game to game within a game, and play defense like he has this year, like it's just not a guy who's very threatening. So
Yeah.
at least especially in a playoff, like he's still like he's still a guy that's exhausting to guard against because whenever he does decide to go at you, it's probably not a very fun piece of like a not a very fun contact to take on. But when when you can involve him in a pick and roll or use him, or, force him to be the low man and he can't guard the rim, it's a pretty easy trade off you'll take. I would say my next Christmas or sorry non-denominational holiday gift would be for the Celtics to get a center who isn't best known for his quirky contests. Uh,
Mm.
I think Al Horford is still a fine player, but he is clearly not the rim protector he once was. And Luke Cornett is clearly not going to cut it. I mean, I think you saw how kind of pedestrian the Celtics looked for that week and a half stretch or week stretch without Kristaps Porzingis. And I think they just need someone who can play alongside Al Horford, let Al Horford be the four, and is actually a legit backup five because I think Cornette is a fine third center, but not a guy you want to rely on for minutes in the playoffs at all, let alone behind an injury-prone Kristaps Porzingis and an aging Al Horford. So I think still think the Celtics are good, but I don't trust their defense the level I have in the last couple of years under Mazzulla and Ime. I just think they're too reliant on Kristaps, and the minutes without him are kind of a disaster. I would have to look at them specifically, but anecdotally, they just haven't really been able to protect the rim whatsoever whenever he's not on the floor. So that would be kind of my wish list for them this holiday season is to find another big man who isn't Luke Cornett.
How would you feel about trading? This is just like off the top of my head, so just like hypothetical player, but like, what if there's a center out there who could shoot? Not actually, but like years ago, he shot 40% from three, and like maybe he can post up, and like he doesn't get to the line, but he can still kind of post up. He has existed on multiple top 10 defenses, so maybe he's not like cataclysmic. Like theoretically, if that guy was out there, he's okay. He's a decent passer. Like, how would you feel about
I
saving
don't even know who this
all the
is.
all the Celtics assets? Well, like if like Nikola Vucevic, maybe he
my
might be available. I don't
my
know.
brain went to Drummond initially, and then you said he could shoot, and I was like, that's not Drummond.
Hey, take them both. Take them both. 2 for 1.
No.
I don't know if I think Vucevic's contract is too lofty given what the Celtics have already handed out and have on the payroll, and two, I don't know if Drummond is quite the backup option that they like is a good enough playoff backup option. He might be. I think
Hmm.
it's tough because I don't think there are that many legit backup fives who you can trust in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like if you went back like the last three playoff winners, their backup center playoff winners, title winners, the backup centers was a starter, right? It was Aaron Gordon, Draymond Green, / Kevon Looney, and then Giannis, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then the year before that, I guess like I would have to. I mean, the Lakers are kind of weird because they changed their big man rotation at times throughout the bubble, but I mean, I would imagine LeBron was probably their second best center option behind AD that year. Maybe I'm wrong, but point being is usually you find some other counter, and part of that is the fact that like a lot of these teams lately have been huge, like on the interior that have won
Mhm.
titles, and the Celtics aren't necessarily that. Like Tatum is a four, and he's pretty big for a four, but he doesn't have quite kind of the same level of rim protection and strength that a Giannis and Aaron Gordon and a Draymond have. So uh, it is a tough archetype to find, and maybe the Celtics can kind of pave their own path to win it with maybe a shaky interior rotation. But I don't, even as good as their offense has been, I don't think the process looks as ideal as you would like. It still feels a lot like last year, where they're like, it's a little bit of cook him offense and then drive and kick. And
Mhm.
sometimes you can't cook them, and then it stalls into a Jason Tatum mid-range jumper that is a fine shot, but if you take it 8 times in the final quarter, you're probably not in a good spot offensively. So, yeah, that I mean, I don't think Drummond's a bad target for them, but I do think Drummond's maybe sometimes a little too like he's uh he's high risk, high reward, right? Kind of his playmaking style. He isn't always boxed out defensively to start having gaudy rebounding numbers or historically gaudy rebounding numbers. So he isn't a good finisher, doesn't space the floor. So I do wonder kind of what that might look like. Because I mean, Cornette honestly is like a pretty impressive finisher, which is funny because he kind of came in the league as a stretch big. But uh, yeah, maybe Cornette figures it out. But I do think the Celtics have to add some more size in the interior. Maybe it's not even a center. Maybe it's a four
Yeah.
that can kind of play, behind Jason. I know that Al Horford kind of already is that, but they play him as their backup five. So either a four or a five that can come off the bench and really kind of give them more interior pop on both ends would benefit that team a lot.
We mentioned Gafford. Could he be an option, do you think, or not
I
really?
think so, but the Celtics, their issue is like he's such a pick and roll heavy big, and they're not really a
Mhm.
pick and roll heavy offense. Like they're pick and pop heavy,
Hmm.
like to space it out. So I think he would be a good option actually, but it would require them to kind of change things up a little bit. And granted, I don't think running more offense through Derek White is a terrible idea. He's been really impressive this year as kind of a secondary ball handler, and I think he is their best kind of like pure pick and roll player because he's a good pocket passer, can get to the mid range pull up and that quick release, has a nice little floater. So I wouldn't mind that, but it would just kind of they would have to understand how to maximize Gafford because I think you saw a trade like that last year with the Nuggets, right, where they brought in Thomas Bryant and they never really used him in a way that maximized his minutes, and it made sense to not play. I'm not saying they did anything wrong, but they never really ran offense and minutes in a way that complemented his skill set. So if you're going to do that, you probably need to kind of rearrange the offense a little bit. But I do think they have the personnel to make it work, so I don't hate that at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really considered the backup center role for the Celtics very much, which is weird because the second they moved for Porzingis, I was like, okay, to win the title, you need 6 straight weeks of healthy Porzingis. Like, that's a prerequisite to Boston making a deep playoff run. And it doesn't feel like that's the most sustainable thing in the world. Gafford makes sense. I'm not exactly sure. It feels like Washington would want a decent return on him for like a guy of his caliber just because they don't have anybody there really, like that's one of their promising guys, and so to move for him, I'm not sure what like the asset situation is like in Boston. I think any four that gives you a like help side rim protection, I think you could justify playing Horford at the five at that point because I like Horford positionally. It feels like he is kind of the realized idea of PJ Tucker, where it's like this guy who knows exactly where to be and is really strong and can like box out on rebounds and do all of like the gritty hustle stuff that you want someone in that position to do. And just like the only thing he can't do is, I don't know, move laterally or jump really high anymore. But yeah, I don't know. Backup center for
Who among us though? I mean, he's just relatable in that sense then. But I am now just looking that part of the issue too is the Celtics don't really have any like mid-level contracts besides Horford,
yeah,
and Gafford he's on a 3 years $40 million contract, so you'd have to like package together a lot of like their quote unquote depth. I mean, they don't really go beyond like I think Hauser's their seventh man. He's probably like the last guy you kind of trust. I think Pritchard's too mercurial, but then you got like Pritchard at 4 million. Um, Brissett at 2 million, Cornette at 2.5. Like it might be tough for them
Oof.
to go for Gafford, but I think we have the right idea of a wish list for this team. And granted, we are not Brad Stevens, so we don't have to figure out
yeah.
the specifics of the cap holds and and all that. So that's my own gift to myself, as I'm not an NBA GM.
Yeah.
So
No,
I'm
it fucking
I'm
rocks, to
glad
be
for that.
honest. Like you started talking about money. I never think about money when I imagine trades. I'm always like, this guy would fit there, and they're the professionals. They should figure out how to
Yeah,
make it work. That's
yeah,
how.
you figured it out, boss man.
All right, I'm clocking out, Brad. I'll see you on Monday. My next wish list for the Pacers, Indiana Pacers, pretty straightforward, a two-way wing. It's been in the news that like OG and Siakam are kind of borderline available, and teams are always interested in them come trade deadline. It feels like I like OG more for Indiana if they could pull it off. Seems like you're probably going to need to get either one to agree to a new contract. I think Anunoby has a player option next season, and Siakam's just a
A
straight
pretty
up.
cheap deal. I can't. Yeah, OG's a pretty big underpay, so I can't
Yeah,
imagine
no,
he
he'll want
exercises
money
that.
if yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think he opts in next season. And so, yeah, but he's 26 and feels like if you get him into the Pacers system like this run and gun shit, he could put up solid numbers. Like he can space the floor. He does everything that they would need while giving them a lot more upside defensively from like worst in the league to maybe helping them get to near the middle of the pack or something along those lines. My big question is just kind of you have this hugely promising player in Tyrese Halliburton, like where you go from just being like a team that's trying to rebuild to now you're almost in like Luca realm where it's like, okay, the pressure is on to put a team around this guy that can like make a playoff run because he is exploding into this level of play that you haven't had on your team in a very long time. And so if you get OG to agree to a contract extension, is it like, are you paying him as the third best player on a team that can contend for a title? Or are you like, do you think he's probably more suited to being like that fourth guy? I don't know.
Yeah, I think with OG, like they'd probably have to pay him as the second best guy, and I don't even hate that one because the cap's gonna continue to
Hmm.
spike. So like by the time maybe they've made the moves to get to that point, maybe he's already the third highest. But also I think he could like I think with how good Hallie's looked and kind of the rest of the roster they have there, I think OG could be a guy that is like a second best player on a team that wins a series at least.
Hmm.
And that would be a good. I mean, this team needs to get playoff. It's a cliche, but they need to get playoff experience. I want to see what they look like when they can't run and gun the entire time when teams are ready for the quick hitting offense.
Not great.
So
Not
I
great,
don't
according to the Lakers game.
even that. I mean, Buddy Hield had one of his worst
Yeah,
freaking season games
that's
of the
true.
year in this. So, but I think that was more of an issue that they didn't have any. Like it speaks more to the fact they had nobody on the inside once Turner was in foul trouble, which felt like it was basically in foul trouble from the start. And Turner's a good player, but he's always struggled with those matchups. You're talking about Gafford, a guy who's been owned by Embiid. I mean, Turner's had it for longer and worse. It feels like, and AD kind of showed that as well. So yeah, I think just the Pacers just need more strength and physicality. Like I think Aaron Nesmith's turned into a solid role player, but part of the reason he's so valuable for them is because he's kind of their only guy with any sort of size that really gets after it and puts pressure on you and puts physicality against you, uses a strength on both ends. Not that they really like need a bunch of fine tuning offensively, but kind of his hard nosed drives and good shooting are kind of a different style than you see with a Heald or even a Bruce Brown. I guess Mathurin brings it to you, but Mathurin's still so young, kind of chaotic on some of his drives, so it's tougher to kind of say it's super fruitful at this moment, even if it's a good process overall. But I like that for them. They just need their defensive roster and talent is just so poor.
Yeah.
I tweeted during that Lakers game that I feel like Miles Turner hasn't been as good the last couple years defensively as he was in prior years, and people rightfully pointed out that the defensive talent around him is worse. But I think that's true. But I also think he's taken a step back, and so they're still relying on him more than they should. And part of that too, I think he's put on a little weight to diversify his game offensively. He's such a good diverse complementary player on offense
Hmm.
now, but doesn't look quite as like rangy and spry playing drop coverage and stuff. So yeah, I think OG makes a lot of sense there. I think Pascal too. I think it'd be fun to watch Pascal on the open floor. I remember when I first started watching him when he was like still kind of because he was still like I remember watching a little bit of 905 Raptor stuff and just the way he moved in the open floor, how quickly he did that with some of the pace. And then when the Raptors had that like fun bench unit, like with the DeMar era, when they had like DeLon Wright, still Pirtle, I think was a backup for them. He did a lot of stuff with the open floor that really popped me. So I know he's probably a lot older. He's had some injuries that have made him a little less spry, but it would be fun to watch him in the open floor taking outlet passes from Howley and having all that room with Heald on the perimeter. So I like both options for them a lot, and I think at the same time it would be good for the Raptors to be the other red and black Eastern Conference team treading the mediocre treadmill that should blow it up. So I think this would be a beneficial idea for everyone involved. Or heck, maybe the Pacers just say defense doesn't matter and they can sign Zach LaVine. They can trade for Zach LaVine instead. Like let's score 130 points per 100 possessions, set the all-time record, and give up 123 or 100, not even 127. Their net rating wouldn't be
Damn,
+7. That
lots
would be
of
too hard
close
to them.
games. I like
But
that.
that's my wish list. Is the Pacers. The Pacers help give direction to one of these middling, which is a kind phrase to use for the Raptors and Bulls this year.
Yeah.
Teams in the East.
Yeah, if only they drafted someone who was like a big wing who could defend and who could dribble and pass and has a floater. It's like a lot. Just let Jarris Walker cook. Let him cook. Bring him up. Let him do something. It's funny because like idealized Jarris Walker answers a lot of those questions, but it's obviously not going to happen this year because he's a rookie. But yeah, I'd like to see Jarris Walker more. It feels like they lack passing outside of Tyrese Halliburton. Like if they could just have more guys that can make these quick decisions and quick good decisions, then they could it would be easier to capitalize off when teams are picking up Halliburton full court and he's drawing all this attention. It feels like if they could just ping it around the perimeter, that could help supplement some of this stuff. But
I think
yeah,
Andrew Nembhard would have helped with that a lot on Saturday. He was because he got hurt in the game on Thursday. He's kind of been in and out of the lineup, but he is a guy that I think is a really good connective piece, really good backup point guard for them. Plays a different kind of style than Howley. He's like very methodical, gets to his places with his frame. I think he's like 6'4", 6'5", pretty strong. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I agree in general. They need a little more passing beyond Howley, but I do think Nembhard could be that kind of connective piece for them. He hasn't shot the ball well from three this year, but he's a willing shooter. Certainly draws harder closeouts than TJ McConnell, even though TJ was impressive in that game on Saturday, kind of helped them get back in it for a little bit. So don't want to disparage him too much, but the lack of floor spacing, kind of makes it tough for them to play together, even though he is kind of a good secondary ball handler to have out there alongside Howley. But I agree in general, secondary ball handling next to Howley would be a huge benefit for them, and I think OG wouldn't really offer that, but he is a guy who can attack closeouts, give you that strength. I think I like the way he's grown as kind of a guy attacking close the last couple of years. So, and obviously Pascal is a very, very accomplished and credible secondary ball handler. So, I could see either of those guys being a very good fit.
Yeah, definitely. Damn, you name dropped TJ McConnell. Pablo, do you have any other wish list for us?
Oh yeah,
all right. Let's hear yours. Let's hear yours.
All right, so the first one is a multiple year-long, at the least, suspension of Miles Bridges from the NBA. When is their investigation going to conclude? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what Adam Kissinger if he decides to lay down the law. But that would be cool. And then the last one would just be Ice Bryce Sensabaugh minutes in the NBA. Jazz, what are you doing? You have nothing interesting going on. Get him up there. He'll answer a lot of your questions. If I'm the Pacers, I might look into acquiring Bryce Sensabaugh. That could work.
I think this
might good in the G
this
League.
might be the cheat code. Is you get all your favorite young players maybe aren't getting minutes, and you just put them into that pyramid scheme that is the Pacers offense.
Damn.
They're gonna get 9 points a game on 60% true shooting by just playing alongside Haller, playing next to Heald. Like it just I mean like Obi's a very solid player, but his efficiency this year is ridiculous because he just like it's either hitting. And he's improved as a shooter. I don't want to discredit, but like he gets all these open finishes because they'll trap Halley and then tag, and then Halley throws a lob from half court when he cuts from the corner, and it's like he can jump out of the roof.
Literally, no. I texted Pablo something exactly like that. It was during some Pacers game where I was just like, "Oh my god, what if we just throw it to Obi from half court every possession? This is like a really smart offense we're running here." Yeah, man, he's crazy.
Yeah, people said Josh Giddey was the NBA's first special teams player, and Obi is the same way. It's just like he can only exist in transition, and so maybe I mean there's a lot of like Giddey looks really bad on the Thunder. People are talking where could he fit? Maybe the Pacers are the Giddey fit. He can't shoot, but he can pass, and in transition he could be useful. So maybe
Yeah,
that's the thing. I don't know.
Giddy's the equivalent of a really good punter, and Obi's the equivalent of like a goal line fade guy. So that, I mean,
Oh, okay.
they can build a special teams roster
Well, Josh Giddey's
in
he's
Indiana.
Devin Hester out there. Yeah.
Well, let's not associate my goat with Josh Giddey. Let's chill out.
My fault, OG. My last request was the Bucks move for one singular point of attack defender. And then I have some
Mm,
notable backcourt performances versus Milwaukee. Halliburton, one of the best guards in the league. It's understandable to get lit up by him. He's given him 27 and 15. He's given him 27 and 10. Brunson's given him 45 points. Cam Thomas has given him 45 points. Kyle Lowry, in the year of our Lord 2023, has given them 21 points and 6 assists on 90% true shooting. These motherfuckers,
he's
he's
back.
back. They can't guard guards. And so I have TJ McConnell on my list because the problem is they also don't have assets. They've just kind of like gradually overpaid every move that they've made for a while, it seems like, where it's like, oh, that's just like the Bucks not being afraid to commit to winning now, and now all of a sudden they have a problem that they can't fix because they've just given up a little bit too much every time. And so I think the dream is Caruso or maybe get Javon Carter back. But then realistically, I think we're probably looking more of like Chris Dunn surprised me when I was looking through. I was like, that's like a
Mm.
gettable guy who is a respectable point of attack defender. So, what are you guys thinking about that?
I agree. I mean, I've been a little less harsh on my stance of Milwaukee the last couple weeks because, like I said, every time I watch them, even if the offense isn't like fully streamlined, like they just wreak havoc when Dame and Giannis are out there, and they feel that they're increasingly running actions that involve them. But yeah, it's not even just the way. It's not even just like the like guard. Like they're just like not very inspiring on the wing.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Middleton is still a pretty good offensive player, but can't move laterally to save his life. Um, I like Marjon Beauchamp, but I think he's just like he's not a guy you want to put on top scorers. I wish they would give Andre Jackson Jr. a little more run. I think he's popped in the stuff I've seen. He's a nice connective player as well, and has kind of been aggressive from three as well when he's had some minutes, which is interesting. So I know he's a pretty shaky shooter, but he just gives them kind of like a lot of like pop and like spunk, I guess, on the wing. Like they're just so unathletic on the wing.
Moxie. He's
Uh,
giving a moxie out
yeah,
there.
yeah. We could just
Mm.
throw every synonym we want out there. Let's pull out the thesaurus. But like they played the Raptors a few weeks ago, and the Raptors just crushed them with Siakam and Scotty because they have like no size in the wing, and those guys are so good at punishing undersized wings, whether it's with the face up or the post up. So I don't hate any of those options, but I do just wonder like how can they like actually rectify it to a meaningful degree, and I'm just not sure. And it might just be like, okay, Dame and Giannis, you do everything. Dame, let's like see you lock in a little more on defense because there have been stretches in Dame's career. Started last year as well where he's been pretty like solid on defense. I've actually liked what Cam Payne's done this year on both ends. He's shooting the heck out of the ball, and I think he's kind of a feisty point of attack guy. But Malik Beasley tries, but he just is so limited laterally and so limited vertically, I guess, like height wise. I feel like I can't really, as a 6 foot guy, I can't tell a 6'4" guy that he's limited vertically. It doesn't really seem fair. But it doesn't really offer another thing there. So I do wonder kind of what they can do, but I don't hate those options. I just worry a lot about the defensive talent around Giannis and Brook, and think this might just have to be they might have to be kind of like Pacers light in the sense their defense isn't anywhere close to as bad, but their offense is just gonna like drive them
Yeah,
all the way to a ring, and it might work,
maybe.
but I don't know. It's hard to foresee because even last time people were like, oh, like the Nuggets defense, like it's not good enough, and then the Nuggets played really really impressive defense in the playoffs. Uh, and they have the talent too. Like Jokic stepped it up. Aaron Gordon was great. KCP was great. Murray was pretty solid. Both Browns off the bench, spelled different ways,
Yeah.
were solid. And their thing too, part of their vision was like they didn't have any like small guys at their position.
Mm-hmm.
any guys who were like not strong at their position either, and the Bucks have a lot of that. So I kind of worry about how they address it, but it's certainly something that they should hope that Santa or whoever provides the gifts for their religions or traditions acquiesces between now and the February something trade deadline. I can't say. I know it off the top of my head.
Krampus breaks in and whips out an Io
Oh.
DeSumo for him.
Oh, that I'd give him up.
Really?
I'd do
What?
it.
You'd
Second.
move off
Well,
Io?
Twist my arm, why don't you?
yeah, because yeah. I mean, for like a honestly, I don't know what his value is, but I'm not.
I don't
I'm
know if the
honestly,
Bucks
I'm
have
not
any
really
first
counting
to
on
offer
him
Yeah,
to
you.
I
be.
You
can't
might be
imagine they do.
Yeah.
you might be out of luck on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, where else can we go for? I'm just not really counting on him to be a pillar of our future. Like I'm still not sure if like Kobe White has to stick around, and if I'm not sure about him,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am like, okay.
25 points per
That guy's
game over the
moving.
last 2 weeks. Kobe White, he's not a pillar of the
he
franchise.
listen, he's looking good, but am I crying if we traded him for some assets? I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Are you guys cool? I have to run to the bathroom real quick, and then we move to Indiana, Orlando.
Yeah.
I would rather you
Shut
held
up,
it until
Santa.
you
I'll
peed
be
your
right
pants.
back.
I'm in a parking spot. My usual spot was taken. I hate. Do you ever? Well, no. You live in like Philadelphia, right? Like the city.
I live in North Philly.
Yeah, I always like am looking for a spot to park, drink some coffee, listen to a podcast, and there's one great parking spot right by my house. But if there's one person in the lot, then I'm not gonna go because I don't want to
You don't want to
intrude
make
on
them
them.
feel troubled.
Yeah, and you know what? Other people do not have the same courtesy. When I'm the only one there, they like to pull up right next to me. It's like, have some decency. Have you started your draft stuff for this year at all, or
I
not
don't do
really?
drafts. I just don't have time. And then like the NBA season ends, and I'm not gonna cram stuff for a week. I
Yeah.
got when I did full time draft stuff, I got knowing people did that, so I'm like I'm not gonna I'm not gonna do that. But I follow people stuff who do it a lot. Like obviously I follow like Zach Milner and Ben Pfeiffer and those guys, but
Mhm.
that's like very like cursory. I don't know. You know that Cursory.
Yeah.
That's why I write. I
Did
don't talk.
did you see Zion trying to say lackadaisical?
Zion?
Was lax. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot what he said. Lackadaisical. I don't know what he
Yeah.
said. It was
Well,
so
he went all out during the game. He was flustered. He didn't have the brain capacity to.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
The national media is always scrutinizing him, man. He scores 35 against the best defense in the league, and now we're talking about how he pronounced the word lackadaisical. Give him a break. It's not in his vocabulary. He's never lackadaisical. He doesn't know how to say that word.
first time.
I think he's been lackadaisical plenty. He better learn.
Oh man.
Exactly.
All right. Boom. Seamless jump cut. Good job, editor Jack. This next segment, I just have Indiana versus Orlando written down in my notes. Pablo, I'm gonna let you take the lead on what you were thinking here. How we feeling?
So here's what I'm thinking. We have the Indiana Pacers elite offense, like pace, run and gun, defense. Ugh. And then we had a moment where we faced our mortality against the Lakers, and not every team is going to have Anthony Davis and LeBron, but still it felt like, okay, there's things you can do, and also. Mr. Jackson Frank here also wrote an article about how Orlando had success guarding this Pacers offense. And then so I started thinking about Orlando, and I was like, okay, they have a really great defense. They have subs. I'm thinking but their offense is a little rough. And so I'm thinking, who do we trust more at this stage of the season? Do you trust the defensively slanted Orlando Magic or the offensively slanted Indiana Pacers? Who would you bet to go further in the playoffs? Mr. Frank, take the floor.
If I had to bet one, I don't predict either one to make it beyond the first round, I think, right now. But if I had to bet one, I feel a lot more comfortable about the Magic. Uh, One, because they're in. I'll get into kind of the eye test of it too, but based on the numbers right now, they've been a better team. They're 14th in offense, third in defense, fifth in net rating. The Indiana Pacers are first in offense, 28th in defense, and 15th in net rating. So there's just a much larger gulf, and to me, I think part of the reason the Magic offense is just solid is because they have guys who can create their own shot, like guys who can just kind of create something out of nothing. I know Paulo's like still kind of working it out, so is Franz, but I trust those guys
Mhm.
to like go get a bucket more than I trust like the Pacers' collective defensive roster to just like get consistent stops. And I think part of what Orlando does well too is they can get out and run because of their stops. You can't really like you can't really turn defense into you can't turn bad defense into good offense really, but you can turn good defense into good offense. And so
Yeah.
and I guess the flip side would have been you can turn good offense into good defense because the team has to get set, but the Pacers half court defense is still just terrible. So to me, I just trust Orlando more. I think that in like I'm curious to kind of see what their center rotation shakes out like when Wendell comes back. They also do have the looming question with like a Marco Fultz situation where he's been out a lot of the year.
Mhm.
Paulo's been better. I think the offense looks a little better running through Franz and Paulo. Jalen Suggs obviously starting to draw harder closeouts from three. Anthony Black is kind of more just a nominal starter, but he is a much better off-ball player than Fultz. I think he's a good cutter, good finisher. He's just a more like flexible player too, like in terms of like literal flexibility. Is part of what makes him a good finisher. Um, Whereas Fultz initiates offense and stands above the break and then kind of impedes on what Franz and Paulo want to do. So I'm curious how they answer that. But to me, I just trust Indiana. I just trust Orlando's offense to be able to scheme stuff a little bit, like just to create like system buckets, and then also have guys go get their own. Versus, I don't really like Indiana's scheme. They pressure the ball a ton. They don't help off of above the break. They like never give up threes, but they don't have like the size on the back line besides Miles Turner to like stop guys when they make drives. So I don't like the scheme or the talent, whereas I trust the scheme and the talent of Orlando's offense more than Indiana's defense. So to me, I feel a lot more comfortable with Orlando than Indiana. But there always is the tiebreaker, the fact that Indiana's best player is much better than anyone on Orlando, which can't solve everything. We've seen plenty of teams with a much better player lose games in the regular season and playoffs, but that could be the sort of thing that maybe breaks my calculus on this one.
What is seed is the Pacers right now? They're the fifth seed. Okay. Well, I think I don't know. I'm gonna be fucking lame. I'm gonna agree here, just in the sense that I like defense in the playoffs, especially when you get to face like the 7 seed or whatever Orlando's gonna be looking at right now. Defense is a lot more reliable way of being competitive in game. Um, I did like the fact you were like, you can't turn bad defense into good offense. But if you're playing the Milwaukee Bucks, who just like, it's the middle of the third quarter, they're still not getting set in transition, and Tyrese Halliburton's chucking it on the inbounds pass. I don't know. It seemed like they were generating a lot of good looks by just like letting Milwaukee score and then just like fucking zooming past them at the speed of sound. However, I don't know. When the game breaks down into a half court setting, it feels like Indiana's offense is just really good as opposed to like the overwhelming level it needs to be at in order to like overcome their defensive issues. Whereas with Orlando, I feel like I said, they're going to be competitive in most games because their defense is just going to make it hard on whoever they're playing. And then in a half court setting, I really, especially recently, have loved what Paolo Banchero has done. His scoring's been up, his efficiency's good. I like he kind of is similar to Zion, like in the sense that he has ways to score that survive a bad shooting stretch. Like his floater's really good. He can really go at mismatches, similar to Aaron Gordon as well. Like he's a legit 6'10", and if you get a smaller guy switched onto him, he can go in the paint and score pretty easily. And then Franz Wagner, additionally, feels like a very I like him. I hesitate to say like Jaylen Brown esque because he's like it feels like a way better shooter and everything, but just like supplementary scorer to what Paolo is able to do. I fuck with Franz a lot, and outside of Indiana having the better player, like when you match up best player for best player, and then you go down the roster, it feels like 2 through 6 probably goes to Orlando when I'm thinking about it. And I just feel like
I think Miles Turner probably nestles in somewhere there, but in general, I think like the general sentiment is correct.
yeah. And so, yeah, I don't know. I like the depth more. And God forbid, if Halliburton has an off night in a playoff series, it feels like
Hmm.
Indiana's pretty much fucked. Whereas Orlando can absorb one of their best players not playing particularly well offensively.
And they've got the point of attack defense to
The
potentially
dogs,
induce some of
dude.
those off nights, right? With Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black, Mark Kellevis in the rotation. Gary Harris is pretty solid there as well. I will say, doing a little bit of research, just some of the talking points that I put out there. Orlando's 20th in half court offense. Indiana's 24th in half court defense. So it's not quite maybe as big
Hmm.
of a gap in the playoff as I indicated in the playoff setting, where we talked about 14th ranked offense, 28th ranked defense. But yeah, I think a comp I've made a little bit because of the lack of shooting that Orlando has is that kind of reminds me of the 21, 22 Cavs, but I think they might even be better than that. But the differentiator to me is the fact that they have guys with size who can create. And if you have a guy with size who can create, it's easier to mitigate spacing concerns. Obviously, Paolo and Franz are not on the level of Jokic, but what makes Jokic so good is he like doesn't really matter about spacing because he could just score wherever and whenever for the most part. So that again, that's a very like utmost comp in terms of like spacing deficiencies and how size helps work against that. But I trust like you can work around spacing issues much better when you have a Paolo and a Franz and their size to get to their spots than maybe you can when you have a Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. Now, granted, I think those guys are better than Paolo and Franz, but it's just a general kind of sentiment here. You saw some of the issues that Cleveland's run into in the playoffs last year and then 2 years ago when they just had Garland, kind of when you don't have much creation without any sort of size to it.
Yeah, I think the playoffs are going to be very telling this year for well, maybe just for me specifically because my confidence in Paulo is much lower than everyone else. I just feel like in the playoffs, it might be difficult for him to generate efficient and easy looks. Like, even though he's so strong and can move everyone out of the way,
Boo.
like, I don't, there's just like a lack of burst or something to me there. He wasn't efficient at Duke. He wasn't super efficient last year, but he gets the free throw. So I don't know. I'm so conflicted about him. I go back and forth all the time. So I just want to see him in the playoffs because I want to see is he gonna be in that Zion LeBron physical strength game breaking mold, or is it something that's easier to contain in the playoffs, kind of like Julius
Oh shit!
Randle-ish?
I
No,
didn't even
no
think about
slander, no
that comp.
slander.
That's really not the worst comp in the world for how Paolo scores the basketball, dude. Yeah.
No, not at all. I remember when he had that career high night against the Magic last week, I think, when they couldn't really come back. Like I was looking at some of the numbers and like I was on PvP stats and like his average shot distance that game was like 6 feet, and on the year it's like 11 for his career. It's like 12, and it's like that's what we want to see more of. We want to see you get to. And granted, you can't do that for every matchup's different, but I was like that's like the idealized version of Paolo, where he's putting his head down, bullying everyone, getting to the rim, hitting a few pull up jumpers, but really kind of drawing fouls and that. But I don't disagree at all. I think that's a very fair kind of stylistic comp at this point. You know, the goal and the hope for Paolo and his proponents would be that as the season goes on and his career goes on, is that he understands kind of how much of an advantage he
Mhm.
has, that he can keep getting to the rim rather than some of these mid-range jumpers that his numbers through a year plus are not particularly efficient at right now. Maybe that changes. Maybe he gets to go from like I think he's probably like a 38, 39% mid-range guy for his career, which is obviously dreadful. Maybe he can get up to 45, 46, which is a very fine, respectable number. If not efficient, you need to have the mid-range in your bag, as everyone everyone knows when it comes to playoffs. But I don't disagree with those concerns. I think they're very fair, and they're why Paulo has some games where he goes 4 for 16 when you're 6'10", very strong, you can dribble the basketball. Like, why are you going 0 for 12 from mid range? That shouldn't be happening. Like, you don't need to take 12 mid range jumpers.
Yeah. I don't know. I maintain I maintain as a guy with a stupid amount of Julius Randle stock, no one will buy it. I've tried, so I'm just kind of stuck with it. I maintain that if Julius Randle didn't magically become dog shit in the postseason, like he would still be a good player, which you can say for any good player that you'd be like, oh, DeMar DeRozan would be a good playoff player if he was good in the playoffs. But I don't know. It feels like if we're comparing Paolo to Julius Randle right now, I think that bodes fairly well for what it'll look like, at least over the next several seasons. Once you kind of factor in how much of a learning process getting postseason experience can be in terms of teaching a guy like that how important maximizing his physical advantages are, and like how if you're a guy that's capable of getting to the rim whenever you want, like how much that's going to open up those cool mid-range jumpers that'll like blow up on Twitter and everything. Yeah, like playing inside out. I think if Paolo doesn't do that this postseason, I would expect him to figure out that's the way he needs to play over the next two or something.
Yeah, another little weird thing with him this year is he's shooting 40% from three. I think it's on low volume. It's on like
Yeah,
three
he's at 30,
attempts per game or something.
39%. Yeah,
But yeah, but he's sub 70% free throw shooting. It's like high 60s, right?
68.5. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a little funky. So I wonder which is real, which is fake. Will the free throw come up or will the 3 point fall
Yeah, I
off?
do. I do think your comp is completely fair in the interim, though. I think the one difference that could even give hope, like in this season, is that Randall's only 6'8", Paolo's 6'10". There is a bit of a difference there. I think some of
Mm,
Randall's deficient like shot selection stems from the fact that he's a huge creation burden and is just kind of a wing size player, whereas Paolo's kind of like between wing and center size. So, maybe that will help. They've been using him a little bit more as a roller this year. Their spacing is pretty good in a lot of lineups where they have like Franz, Paulo, and Cole out there with like Gary Harris or Joe Ingles, some of those hybrid bench starter lineups. But yeah, I think it's completely reasonable to prefer the team with the guy who's a first team All NBA player right now and is a great offense, and some of maybe the shot selection concerns of a guy like Paulo. And I do wonder kind of as the season evolves and the Magic continue to be a good team, kind of what the hierarchy looks like between Franz and Paulo. They're both pretty good creators. Franz is obviously much better second off ball player, just with his cutting and his closeout attacking and his spot up shooting. And Paulo might be the future, kind of the lead creator. But right now they feel pretty comparable as lead creators. Maybe give an edge to Franz a little bit. Um, I could be wrong there. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I do kind of wonder how that dynamic shakes out. Not in any sort of like pitting them against each other. That's not what I'm doing, but more just like a
mhm.
because they're good, but also because they're both so young still and early in their careers. Kind of what does that look like, and how does Orlando navigate that? Well, it's already a good team. It can be kind of tough to do on the fly when you're 16-7. It's easier to kind of accept those learning curves when you're 11-12 or 9-14, but it's hard to do when you're 16-7 and literally a game out of first in the East.
It is hilarious to just look at
Yeah.
all three of us are like the same white guy, and just imagine just being like, I kind of there's something about France, man. Like he's got a little more sauce out there. I don't know what to I can't describe it. Anyway, Papa, what were you gonna say?
What was? Oh yeah. So Fultz kind of seems like the odd man out right now, and he is a really good point of attack defender. Is he good enough? Could he be a trade target for one of those other teams we talked about, like the Bucks or somebody who's looking for a print? Because even if he's not the highest, like he's not on
Mhm.
the Caruso spectrum, he is like he brings a dynamic ball handling, passing, rim attacking element that those guys don't. So could he be a potential POA target for some of those other
Yeah,
teams?
I when I tweeted about Paulo's numbers over the last like month or whatever, I had a follow up and talked about like a lot of it coincided with Fultz and how maybe their fit isn't ideal because of they like to kind of frequent the same spots offensively. And I had some like Magic fans asking me, kind of what are maybe some spots that Fultz could land or make sense for him. And I think it's tough because I don't think there's a hugely robust market. One, because like the shooting concerns are real, and two, because he already kind of already is in his prime. So I don't know if you want to go to a spot where there are young guards, and kind of take touches away from them. But the three spots that came to mind for me were Utah, San Antonio, and Milwaukee. Obviously, Milwaukee is the only team there with that's going to have legit playoff aspirations this year. So I don't mind that one at all. I think it's a really good fit for him. Like you said, he is a pretty good on ball defender. Does give them kind of a different dynamic as a guard. You know, Payne and Dame are kind of more shoot first players rather than downhill guys. Obviously, Dame is a very good driver. He can get into the rim a ton this year and drawing fouls, but it's a very different style than what Dame does with Fultz. So and he's a good passer too. I think that like he's a very creative passer, and I think they need a little more of that.
Mhm.
I think Dame, Giannis, Middleton are good, but like beyond that, you don't have a ton of like interesting passing there. So I don't hate that fit at all. I just kind of wonder, you know, what the package looks like because Orlando probably shouldn't just like give him up for nothing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
even if this fits a little incongruent, like he does give them stuff with his defense and his passing and his driving. So, but yeah, I don't hate that fit at all, and I think that could be one of the guys that Milwaukee could reasonably acquire and would help them. My general issue is kind of the whole point of attack conversation with Milwaukee is like are you going to end games with Fultz? You know, like can you play him alongside Giannis?
Mhm.
Are you going to be able to play him 30 minutes a night to use his point of attack defense that much over the shooting of someone like Beasley or the secondary ball handling of someone like Payne, who also brings shooting? So, granted, I don't know if Milwaukee's in a good spot if we're talking about Cameron Payne as our second best guard, which he hasn't been at this point. I'm not saying that, but I think this kind of just gets back to the guard worries we had with Milwaukee beyond Dame, some of the fit there. But I do like Fultz as a potential trade target for the Bucks.
I like him for San Antonio. Just, I mean, we don't need to do a deep dive into the fact that it'd be nice for if someone could throw a lob to Wembanyama every now and then. And I think Fultz could be good at that. I believe in the Sohan point guard experiment. If you figure it out, having a guard.
I think it's
Oh
over. I
shit!
think they
It's
said
Yeah,
it's
cooked.
over, right?
I think Shams, I think in like Shams' latest like news dump or whatever, said like they're making it more of like just like a part of the ball handling depth rather than the point guard. But yeah, the reason I like Fultz there is because a guy like Trey Jones has done so much for them,
Hmm.
literally on the fact that like he has a good handle, he can get to the paint,
Yeah.
can't really shoot, and he's pretty small. Whereas Sohan can't really dribble against pressure at all, and Fultz has a good handle and he's got size. So that's why I like that fit. And they have some stuff like, I mean, they already kind of the Orlando already has his version of this, but they get something like built around McBuckets. They already kind of have their veteran sniper
Mm.
in Joe Ingles, but I think he's a different type of shooter. Ingles is kind of more a secondary ball handler for them. McBuckets is going to fly off of 47 pin downs and hit the
Hell yeah.
weirdest three you ever seen in your life. So maybe there's something there. I don't know exactly, but uh, yeah, I think anything to get more shooting and to fill another need for Orlando rather than to just like drop a guy who clearly is seems to be a good locker room presence, has given them clear benefits with his skill set, would be an important thing to do.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Hot take. You shouldn't give up a player for no assets. I like that. I'm on board with that. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's why I get paid the big bucks.
All right. This last
Nice.
official segment we have here is another Pablo one. How we feeling about a variety of young players? I'm gonna let you take the wheel once again. Whoever you want to start with. What's up, Pablo?
All right. So first, I want to tell you. So this might be this might not make sense, but I've been thinking about Scotty Barnes, and so like let's say like John Morant. When you have John Morant, this is a guy who makes a difference from the perimeter driving in, and so that's one way you can win. When you have a big man, he makes a difference near the basket, and then everything happens on the outside. So that's a different dynamic. But as we've learned from Jokic, it's maybe best to have one guy who can go everywhere and have things happening all around him everywhere. And so I was thinking, okay, who else could be in that mold next to be that kind of player? And I'm like, okay, if Shengun ever gets the jumper down, that could be him. And then I was thinking, Could Scotty Barnes ever operate like that? What is because obviously Scotty Barnes is like taking a leap and he's looking fantastic. What is how does Scotty Barnes the superstar? How would his game function? How does it work? Like where does it come from? The spots on the floor, what kind of stuff is he doing? Can he be like the heliocentric scoring and passing everything, or is he different?
I think to me he's more of like a secondary offensive piece with the shooting leap, and a guy who can really. I don't know if I can get to like high level defensive anchor yet, but a guy who really does amplify our defense. I mean, his backline defense and motor this year are incredible. Like, I think one thing that they've done better in Toronto is they use him more as a backline guy, and they still use him at the point of attack too much. But I thought that was like a misallocation of how he should be used. And just his motor is ridiculous. Like he's just so fluid and long and covers ground in a way that a lot of other guys can't. He just like gets to plays that most players can't. Um, but I don't. He's never really like. I think the shooting leap from three is really like one of the things that's impressive is one, the confidence, two, the like diversity of types of threes he's taking. Like they're running off some movement stuff. He's taking threes with hands in space. He's taking sidestep threes. Like it's not just a guy who's all of a sudden hitting like 2.5 threes a night on like 6 threes that are all open. So I think that's encouraging. But he's never really been like he's just not like a great mid-range shooter still, and maybe that comes with time. But like for his career, BLRF has him at 34% from 10 to 16 feet, 41% from 16 to 16 feet to the 3-point line. Granted, this year's at 63% on those shots, 16 feet to the 3-point line. But I think part of what makes Jokic so good is that you have to guard him everywhere on the floor because he's like 3 levels doesn't seem like enough levels for him. He's like a 5 level
Yeah.
scorer almost. Rim, floater, long, mid range, threes. What I don't know. Maybe that's like four levels, but I'm not a math major, so don't hold me to that. Um, but to me that's kind of where I see Scotty as like a really good kind of like second option on both ends of the floor, and maybe that's underselling his defense. I do think his defense has been really good, and I probably should take a longer look at some of his minutes at center this year because they've done some more of that in Toronto. Um, but I like kind of his connective passing, his processing, his versatile shooting, versatile floor spacing. But I don't know if he's the primary scorer. Just kind of given some of the limitations there. And granted, we should see him in a context offensive that's more favorable
Hmm.
than what the spacing he's had for 2+ years now. But he still only is a guy who's at even this year where he's been great, 57% true shooting. His rookie year, 55%. His free throw rate's right around like 24% for his career, which isn't anything inspiring. But again, I don't want to like overly uh, overly punish him for such a limiting context offensively, the lack of spacing, lack of like guard ball handling. So, but to me, I see him more as like a secondary guy on both ends. But that's still a really good player, and plenty of all stars around the league are of that ilk. So I don't really see it as a slight to him.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's a slight at all. There's really not that many guys that you can even imagine succeeding. When you hear the words like heliocentric offense, you think to like Jokic and Luca and Trey, guys like that. And I think if you put Scotty into a situation like that, he probably ends up looking more like a guy we already talked about, Julius Randle, where I think he's like capable
Mm-hmm.
of doing volume scoring on fine efficiency, and I think he is a nice supplementary playmaker. But in terms of like, if you put the ball in his hands and you say generate offense for us, I don't think he is quite as like misdirective or creative with his passing as you would want somebody in that position to be. Like it just feels like he's capable of making smart decisions to guys who are open and like reading a defense. Whereas like if you're asking someone to be the primary initiator in a way that like Jokic is, you're asking them to be able to look off those good open shots in order to create offense for guys who are then like moving around, making cuts to the basket, and I don't know, a variety of different shit like that. That I just think maybe Scotty will show that in later years, but as of right now, I don't. I wouldn't really have faith in him becoming that caliber of offensive player. Which
I I actually like I actually think Scotty's pretty good at that sort of stuff, honestly. Like just and some of this is like I benefit from reading, like I read a lot of what
Mhm.
like I read a lot of stuff that Raptors people write about in like articles. So I feel like I'm not watching every Scotty game. I'm just like benefiting. There's a lot of good people who write about the Raptors. To me, my biggest worry about him is like I don't think his handle is where it needs to be, and then some of his creation kind of comes with his back to the basket,
Mhm.
and it's harder to like really bend a defense that way. Like if you can't face the defense, you're slower to read things a little bit. But I do like Scotty with like with cutters running off him, so I think he's really good in that role. But I just don't know if he can do kind of I don't know if he can do the Giannis stuff because that's kind of the idea, right? Because Jokic is much bigger and he's really strong and has like maybe the best handle ever for a guy of his size. Giannis is kind of right. He uses his length and his strength, and his handle's fine, but that's not really why he's able to kind of conduct so many possessions as a creator, right? So, but I just don't know if Scotty is there. So generally, I think we're in the same kind of realm how we see him, but I just do feel a little more confident about like if they had spacing and cutters around him that he would be pretty good in that role. But I just don't think he can initiate as many possessions as like you need to tilt defenses and stuff. But
Yeah.
I've been really impressed with the shooting and the defense. I think on the whole, there's maybe a little bit over excitement about kind of what he's done this year. Maybe that's not my place. It's like police who the hell gets excited about players. But I do Eric and how excited I get because I'm certainly someone who can get excited about certain players to overarching degrees or whatever, but or over aggressive degrees I would say is the better thing. But I just the games I've seen of him feel like a guy who's like approaching stardom, but I just don't know if he's quite there yet, which is completely fine. I mean, is anyone in that class quite there yet? I mean, like Şengün's probably, we'll talk about him yet, but he's probably the closest right now. Um,
Superstar.
like, I mean, but I think Franz Mobley, Şengün, and Scotty all kind of in that same tier where they're like, you consider them top 50-ish players, but have they made the leap to top 30, top 25, all stars? Maybe, but again, I would feel best about Şengün performing at that level so far this year, but it's also only been 24, 25 games, so I don't want to be too firm my declarations about guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know. I
fair
think
for sure.
I will say Scotty right now, if you could like put him into that spaced offense that you're talking about, and he's like the second best offensive guy, I think that's a team like what he does. Especially if you get him attacking closeouts with his improved shooting this season, how capable he is driving, even if the handle is not like perfect, just in terms of like a guy that big getting downhill. I really like him as a supplementary offensive piece. It's just like putting him into that like big center of the offense role is a little intimidating at this point.
Let's get him to Indiana then. Screw it. We're talking about the wrong forwards in Toronto. Sorry,
Mm,
sorry, Toronto. Like just for the sake of our enjoyment, we're gonna in soccer they have loans. Can we just loan Scotty for the rest of the year? Like
Okay.
Toronto, you can keep him, but
oh
like
my
can they just
god.
have
I
like
just want to see it,
just let him have
please.
Scotty? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just
I've thought about that so much, like how the loan system could save the NBA. Like all of Dame's worries could have just a year out on loan to a team wins a championship, then he gets to come back and still be the Portland guy. Oh my
maybe that's
god,
a
the
new wrinkle
loan
for the in-season
system could do
tournament. Like if you
wonders.
win it, you get to like demand one player to be loaned to your team
Oh,
the rest of the year. Like I mean the Pacers it wouldn't matter because
that
the
would
Pacers didn't
be
get it,
good
but like
stuff.
uh,
Well, let's see. Who could they have taken? Oh, they could have. Well, no, you get to pick.
oh no, okay, it's just one player from one team you beat,
Well, I was
right?
gonna
Like
say if
you
that's
can
the
pick the
case,
Well, no, it's only for the
uh
tournament. Every tournament game, you beat someone, you steal someone,
so
and so they have to
The
play
Lakers
for
would get
you.
like KD
So,
and Halliburton in this
yeah,
in this
okay.
sense, right? Or no, not
it ends after the championship. So only KD or Booker, and then whoever. Oh, and they could get. Well, they wouldn't pick Zion probably. I don't
he
know
didn't
who
really
they
give the
pick.
most
They
flattering
Herb
audition to
Jones.
get
Yeah.
chosen there. But yeah, I think we're on to something. I think we want to see more idealized version of players. Let's get the loan
Yeah,
system going
Adam
here.
Silver, hit us up.
Uh,
Let's build. Let's talk.
yeah, Mr. Kissinger, we're ready to. This is
Well,
soft. This
yeah.
is soft
If
military,
we
like he
if
was
we
talking about. This is what we want.
if we disguise our email to him as like he thinks he's reading a positive Kissinger obituary, then we could get it read like the great diplomat. And he's like, okay, and then it's like, ha, Mr. Silver, we have a proposal.
I think we've got this down.
Perfect. All right. Sharp, Shangoon, or Avdia? Who do you want to talk about next, Pablo?
All right. Well, Avdia, we don't have to spend much time on. Let's just shout out Denny Avdia. He's a great player. Free him, get him out of Washington, or just watch. Well, actually, that's probably mean to Wizards fans. Keep him, but Wizards fans just know we know he's good. But then next up, Shaden Sharp. How are you? You wrote about Shaden Sharp. How are you feeling about Shaden Sharp? When you look at the state of this Blazers roster, are you like, okay, we're building towards Sharp being the guy and Scoot being the complementary piece to Sharp, or are you looking at like they're kind of on the same level, or are you still like he needs to emerge as like the complementary, just scoring type guy for our lead main engine Scoot Henderson? Where are you at with the
I do want
Blazers
to give it just a
hierarchy?
brief blurb on Denny, if any Wizards fans are listening.
Mhm.
I like the way he's improved his aggressiveness as a driver this year. Feels stronger, absorbs contact better defensively. The shot looks good. He's more selective with the jumper, I like the connective passing. I think he's been the most encouraging part of the Wizards' tough season. Just if any Wizards fans were listening, I think maybe they want a little more than just we know he's good. So there's the love for Denny. He's getting downhill more. I like what he's done this year. So he's been one of the lone bright spots for them. But with Shaden, I think it's interesting. Like, I think Scoot's getting more comfortable in kind of some of the reads he's making offensively lately. The footwork as a scorer is still really choppy downhill, which is not great. He kind of gets himself into tough spots, but it looks good as a passer. The jumper is maybe starting to come along. I think he hit 3 threes against the Clippers last night. Um, I think he's Brian Seaman. I think is their play-by-play guy. Called him the spectacled sniper. He's one of my favorite play-by-play guys. He uses that one a little
Oh,
bit. He called Brandon Ingram the sleepy-eyed sniper a few weeks ago. So maybe it's kind of, but it's I
oh,
mean it's all alliterative. So I want to give a shout out to him. He's really good. Um, it's interesting. I think right now the way it's trending, it's so early in Scoot's career, but it is just how I see it right now. I think Shaden's probably the guy you have the most faith in, just because I like his scoring a lot more than Scoots. I think Scoots can be a fine scorer, but like I said, some of the driving downhill as a finisher, he kind of likes to come to 2 feet and like doesn't really have the rhythm to extend off one, which is generally how you finish in the NBA at the rim as a guard. You can come to a 2 foot stop when you're Jimmy Butler, LeBron, some of those bigger guys, but when you're 6'2", 6'3", you're generally going to be able to explode off one. Scoot seems a little weird with that right now. Shaden, what I've liked a lot is like he's getting more comfortable off the dribble. I think the passing is a long way to go, but it does look better than last year. Um, I do think maybe there's like I still want Scoot to continue to develop on the ball because Shaden is such an impressive off-ball scorer with his shooting around screens, his cutting, the way he can kind of like curl around pin downs and explode to the rim, and also like if they cheat under, like there was a play I think I was watching the Warriors game, and somebody like they like ran a pin down for him and somebody cheated under it and he just flared out for like a movement three and hit it, and it's like that's kind of the dichotomy of what makes Shaden so tough to stop off the ball, so explosive downhill, but also a really good shooter off the ball. So right now, I prefer Shaden. I think they're probably around the same age, right? I think Shaden's super young for his class, and Scoot was a little bit older for his. So, um, but I would feel a lot more comfortable in how I read this in 4 months when Scoot's had 60 games under his belt rather than 8 or whatever he's had. So, but I've been really encouraged with Shaden. I think Scoot's making progress, but just kind of the shooting and the scoring and the driving that Shaden can do is really good. And I think his free throw rate's up this year too. It feels like when I watch him, he's gotten unlucky with some of his finishing. He's trying to create a lot more, so his finishing numbers look way worse than last year. But that's also because like finishing as a creator is much more difficult than it is as a cutter and a guy who has pogo stick bounce. Like you're usually going to finish a bunch of those really easily, especially when you're playing off Dame and Anthony Simons. Um, so yeah, I've liked Shaden a lot. I think he's really encouraging, and I hope they continue to give him on ball reps. Um, my good friend Polar Fall, who does incredible biomechanic stuff,
mm,
has come to the determination that he's much more comfortable with Duop Reith as a screener for Shaden because he actually makes contact, knows how to make screens, where Aiton is very contact averse, and The numbers so far are very complementary to uh, the Shaden Reith pairing rather than the Shaden Ayton pairing. So the
Mm.
goal will be, even if Reith isn't the answer, that they find a center that is a good screener and makes contact and can change the angles. Because the one issue that I see with Shaden as a creator, one of the big, is he has a pretty slow release as a pull-up shooter. He kind of brings the ball all the way down to like his waist, and he's not like KD in terms of release point, because KD brings it low, but then he brings it higher than anyone in the world can get to. Whereas Shade just kind of brings it to normal place, and that can kind of allow for some rear view contests, which is why he needs a good screening. So, yeah, I've liked what I've seen from Shade this year, and I think he's gonna. You've seen a lot of strides in kind of the way he approaches things, and I'm encouraged. And I would say right now he would be first in kind of my Blazers rebuilding hierarchy, but that's a very fluid ranking because Scoot's sample is so small.
Damn. Um, I'm definitely as tapped into the Portland Trailblazers as this guy is. We've watched the same amount of games. Duop Reed, I love that guy. Hell yeah. No, I mean, I haven't watched a ton of Sharp. I was huge on Simons coming into the season as like a sleeper MIP guy, and when he went down, I was like, I don't have that much excuse to.
He's shooting the hell of the ball so far in his
Yeah, yeah.
3 healthy
He's
games,
looked real nice
but
coming back. And so, I don't know, the way I've always kind of viewed it, outsider perspective that hasn't really been paying attention to him this year, is you're kind of looking for Scoot. I don't know if you want to describe him as like number one, number two, but Scoot is like you want Sharp to fill the scoring role and Scoot to step into that playmaking role and be like a supplementary scorer to that. And it feels like they could both benefit from that relationship. And like you said, I don't know. The jury is really out on Scoot. I'm not even gonna like try to form an opinion on him until we get to like a lot of games, because he looked good the other night against the Clippers, 3 or 4 from three for 19 points, but every other game has stunk, and so it's just hard when you're 6'2" and everything you need to do to like play at a high level in the NBA is a skill that's going to take a while to develop, as opposed to being like a tall guy who just gets to come in and like be big and strong. It takes a little bit longer to get acclimated to the NBA. So I don't know, not that we're all freaking out about Scoot or anything, but I'm not like ready to really form my opinion on him.
obviously all four of these guys are of much different caliber. But the way you kind of describe it to me, which I think is how I would agree as well, is almost like the Russ KD dynamic in OKC, right? Where Russ was clearly the superior playmaker, but KD was the guy who was the primary scorer. But their usage rates were maybe similar in terms of how much offense they really drove and whatnot. And obviously Scoot has been pretty open about Russ being a guy he looks up to. So not saying that he's going to get to that level. I mean, that would be an MVP, top 75 player of all time, Hall of Famer. But I see that dynamic kind of being similar, and it's not. I think it's to another one that we talked. Like it's almost like the Harden Embiid one last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where so it's not by any means an like a there's a precedent for this sort of dynamic for sure. Obviously, to the levels, they don't have to be MVP Hall of Fame type superstar duos, but clearly there's history here where you can be the lesser playmaker and the better scorer, and for that dynamic to work pretty well still.
Yeah, no, I think they do have to become MVPs, and if they don't, it's a disappointment. Scoot's a bust. Yeah, blow it up, guys. Yeah. So does that just leave Shengun then?
Yeah, I mean, we could. Do you want? Well, we're already at 1:45. I don't know if you have to be somewhere, Jackson, but if we
No,
could
no,
skip it if you want.
I mean, I work from home, so I'm literally just going to be watching games until all, all night. So
Hell yeah, we all rock. We're all gonna be doing
All
the
right.
exact same shit. We got
So
nowhere to be.
yeah,
so will Shengun be as good as Jokic, or
Hmm.
will
I
he
think
be
better
better?
for sure. I mean, I don't remember, did Jokic ever beat Jokic twice in one season when he was in his third year? Like
No, didn't even
I
come
don't think
close
so.
to
I
it.
mean, I think yeah, couldn't even sniff it. No, but I think I mean, I haven't put up like I haven't done this far too early still, but like I think the very least Şengün's like an all-star candidate for sure. I've been really impressed with him, and he's a guy that I was pretty wrong about. I didn't do draft work on him, but as a rookie, I was like, hey, this guy's impressive, but a lot of his stuff as a rookie came against like just mauling backup centers. And I think he's grown 2 or 3 inches too. Like he was 6'8" as a rookie.
Yeah, he seems
Like he was
taller.
That's what
listed, he
they
was definitely
said.
listed like 6'8" as a rookie, and now was like 6'10", 6'11" on Basketball Reference. He's quicker too. His flexibility has always been impressive, but it's even more functional when you're 6'10", 6'11" versus 6'8", because generally the taller you get, you tend to be less flexible, which is what I tell myself, even though I'm only 6 foot, but I'm inflexible. So I like to say that me and Giannis are allowed to be the same level of inflexible, even though he's way more flexible than I am. But that's really impressive. And then the other thing, and I tweeted about a couple weeks ago, but like, and it's not to the same degree, but one of the things that make Jokic so good is like his ability to score through contact and maintain his touch through contact. And that's one thing that I think differentiates him and Embiid to an extent. Um, and that's I keep saying one thing. That's something. Look at me, I'm a writer.
Your
This is why I
prose is
literally have to look up.
terrible, pal. Come on.
Yeah, 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 Jesus. But
Don't read his
yeah,
first
don't
draft,
look at the
please.
unedited version of my Google Docs. I'll never get to write again. But that's something that Şengün started to do this year is he has some of that Jokic like I'm gonna score the ball from like 8 feet away, even if you're draped all over me and it's not a foul, but like it's legal defense, but like really annoying defense. So I think he's gotten good at that. He's expanded his range a lot. Like his rim frequency is way down from the rookie year, which I think is like a good thing. He's much more comfortable from mid range. Has a bunch. He's got the Dirk style fadeaway. He's got like his own version of the Jokic floater, where it's like a set shot from his shoulder, which is really weird.
Mhm.
He's got the like
He like
it's
barely
yeah.
jumps
He's
on
got
any of his shots. He's like a
yeah,
centimeter off
he's
the
gotten better at a
ground.
lot of things physically, but vertical explosion is not one of them, which is fine. And then like the thing that Embiid does really well as a pick and roll guy is like that like jump stop immediately into the mid range jumper. Şengün kind of has that too. Because I read about his scoring jump a little bit a few weeks ago, and it's funny because like I just mentioned, like he kind of is just taking from like three of like the best modern scoring big men, like the Dirk fade, the Jokic floater, the Embiid mid range jumper type of thing. And then the passing, I think he's gotten better. Like I think some of his passing as a rookie was a little more like flash than impact at times. I think he's gotten more selective and kind of better about kind of how to read defenses. I think the defense is okay. Obviously, Houston's very good defense helps insulate him. They want to cut off from him as much as possible because he can't really protect it. Um, but I've been really, really impressed. Like he's a guy, like I said, that was I liked him a little bit as a rookie, but I still just worried about kind of lack of vertical pop against starting centers in that he had like a 45% free throw rate, and I just didn't know if that would translate. His free throw rate's way down. His efficiency is the best of its career. He's one of my favorite guys to watch this year. So he's someone I was definitely wrong about, and assuming he continues to play at the level he has, and the Rockets continue to be around 500. And now that they've actually won a road game, I feel a little better about them. Um, so yeah, he's been really impressive, and I think he should be right in that All Star discussion.
God damn it. I forgot that Jokic had those two terrible games until you mentioned that the Rockets won a road game, and that was one of them. He just completely smoked Jokic. Oh
He
my
shut
god, I
him down.
hated that. But he's been yeah, I mean like
Oh, man.
if you're like borderline all NBA level at 21 years old and like there's legit cases for you over or alongside, especially now that it's positionless, guys like Sabonis, Bam, Gobert. I don't know if Towns is like center, even though he's starting at the four or whatever. But yeah, if you're 21 and you're in those conversations, you're obviously in a very good spot. And I'm curious to see moving forward. The way Jokic's career progressed was kind of it looked really good, and every single time they gave him more opportunity, good shit continued to happen until he was like the best basketball player on the planet. And it's unfair to put that onto Şengün's shoulders, but in terms of can he take that additional step forward into leveraging like the paranoia that being a good passer creates in the defense into like look just like it always feels like Jokic looks around the floor and then it's like, oh, there's a layup because somebody thought I was going to make some insane pass to the corner and just like completely left their guy open. It feels like Şengün, being the level of passer that he is at this age, might progress to that point. And I think I don't know. When I watch him play one on one defense, it doesn't feel like he's been that bad this season. Like his athleticism constantly surprises me when he gets beat off the dribble in terms of being able to like not he's not going to be a transition chase down guy, but if someone beats him at the elbow, he can chase it down and block the shot there, and he's like fairly good as a help side shot blocker, and he jumps a lot, which for a 7 footer, that's what you want. Like it deters guys at the rim to some degree. But then again, my big flaw with evaluating guys is that I'm way too forgiving with the shit that they're bad at, and so that's why I'm off like draft stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I think the groundwork is there for him to become a really good player. And it's just a matter of if the opportunity expands while he's in Houston, does he fill out like does he just step into the role of being clearly their best player and like the guy that they need to build everything around moving forward?
Yeah, the thing I'm hoping to see from him next is like consistent 3-point shot. I don't know what he's at.
I think
Yeah,
31%. I'm on his, yeah,
it's low 30.
31.4.
Yeah, so that's not great. What I love so much about him is no 31% 3-point shooter has ever operated beyond the 3-point line and done pump fakes as much as him. He's pump faking every single time, and he gets people sometimes. I don't know how, but he's always like, I might take it. Then they move forward and he could beat them off the dribble. But yeah, he's so fascinating. No other player like Jokic is manipulating defenders. I always say Şengün is manipulating the crowd. He's looking where there's no defenders. He's looking at the guy in the nosebleeds. He's like, "You think I'm passing there? No, I'm passing there." And so, does it? Is it creating an opening? No. Is it cool? Yeah. And so he's so bizarre. I love him so much, and I'm
Uh,
hoping for
speaking
We'll
superstar.
say
We'll
you
see.
you, you got to watch some young Joel Embiid if you haven't seen a poor 3-point shooter pump fake beyond the arc as much as Şengün. He doesn't do it anymore, but Embiid loved to pump fake, and guys would bite on it.
Mhm.
I mean, like it's like most iconic like playoff play with that massive dunk against Toronto. He like pump fakes, and I don't know, remember. I think Gasol flies by, he does the windmill dunk. It's like just just don't fall for it.
I was
But it's again, it's not human nature. I mean,
Maybe.
who am I to talk? I'm sure I've been dusted by terrible shooters and pickup by a pump fake.
Mhm.
So
I was gonna say the ratio of like 3-point percentage to pump fakes. I don't know if he gets as many raw pump fakes in a game, but Sabonis is right there with Şengün, just in terms of like dog shit 3-point shooter. But top of the key, he'll still get you 3 or 4 a game where nobody even moves, but he will hit that pump fake up there.
Alan Tunis loves it. They're teaching something different in the international game. Apparently, I guess Embiid learned basketball in the U.S.,
Yeah,
but those European countries are teaching you to pump fake even if you're not a good shooter. I
just
love it.
do it. Just
So.
do it. Make it part of your motion. Just do it. I also like how he fades on a lot of jumpers for no reason. Like gets 4 feet of space, it's still the Dirk fade. I love that. It's so funny.
So it's just like a rhythm thing he had this year. Like it always has to be like his left leg is planted. He's gonna kick out the right one. It's a weird ass thing. Like DeMar DeRozan does that kind of thing too sometimes. It's like why like it's just a rhythm bucket, I guess.
All right. Are you ready for a game, Jackson Frank? I want to play a
I've been
game.
I've been I've been thinking about it the entire 2 hours.
Hell
I've
yeah.
been I've been preparing. I've been preoccupied. Sorry if my analysis wasn't up to snuff.
Yeah, we're gonna lower your feed now because of that. Um, so hello everybody, welcome to the game portion. This is presented to you by Hot Tunes TV China NBA, the only basketball YouTube channel on YouTube. So go over and check out Hot Tunes TV China NBA. So this game is the origin of this is I found out Bill Russell played pre High Five, and so I looked up other inventions and other players, and so they are going to be pitted against each other, Hunger Games style, to see who can guess more of these right. Did this player play before this thing or after? And so the
I'll give it to
first
the guest.
who wants to go
Jackson, you can
first?
go first.
All right, all right.
Okay, all right, Jackson. So did Bill Russell play before wheels were added to luggage?
Before I'm gonna say Bill Russell played before wheels were added to luggage. Let's go.
Celtics couldn't wheel their luggage across the airport. Well, were they even flying? I don't know what they were doing back then, but they luggage didn't have wheels until the year 1970, and Bill Russell retired in 1969. So he's a
Yeah, I
pre-wheels
gotta think
on
about the end of a guy's career
luggage
too. Yeah,
player.
okay. So is that the deadline? So if a guy played at all during the invention of something?
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right. I
Damn.
gotta think
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
I gotta think end of guy's career rather than like their prime or their peak, because I definitely know Bill Russell's peak off the top of my head for sure. I've watched all of it.
All right, Mr. Star.
Yes, I
Gary
think.
Payton. You've heard of him. Did his career predate
The fuck?
blue
Oh my god.
LED
Wheels on
lights?
luggage. That's a layup. Blue LED lights. Oh. Okay, so you know what? I'm gonna say yes. Yeah,
That his
yeah.
career
He
was over
retired in what?
before blue LED lights came out.
2006, 4?
Something like that. I don't know exactly, but I do know you're
Wow,
correct.
I would
Blue LED
because he
lights
won a ring
were
with
not
the '06 Heat. I would
invented
have said
Yeah.
no.
until well, blue LED lights were not invented
Holy
until
fuck.
Oh,
2014, I guess, according to Reddit. So I didn't fact check this, but apparently it was a big innovation. So you're knotted up 1 for 1, and so I have 7 of these. Um, all right, let me mark down that score. All right, Jackson, did who did George Mikan play before
um,
sliced bread?
two things I have no idea for the general time period. I think Mikan was like the '50s, but I'm not even. I saw some stat the other day like Mikan shot like 22% of layups, and we have a drill named after him making layups. I was
I saw
like,
that one too.
this,
Yeah, like him and
Fucking
Jokic by
scrubs.
I was
far
like,
the
this is
worst
yeah. No wonder I didn't make it to
finishes
the
in the
NBA. I
game
was doing a
ever.
drill after a guy who couldn't make layups. Like, before or
Yeah.
after? I'm gonna say sliced bread was invented while he was still playing.
Sliced bread. Well, no, it's only before or
Oh,
after.
I'm gonna say it was invented before. Well, wait. Am I saying I? I'll say after. I'm all screwed up here.
Wait, are you sure? All right. So, was it invented? Was it when George Mikan came into the
Oh,
NBA? Was sliced bread a thing, or
no,
did it
no. It was
only
invented
start
after he came into
after
the
he was?
NBA. Okay,
It
okay,
was
yeah,
invented after.
got it. Yeah, yes,
No, are you
yes,
saying
yes.
that?
That's
Holy
what I'm
Okay.
shit,
saying.
Pablo.
Yes.
Oh man.
Oh my god! All right, sliced bread
Ugh.
is before George Mikan. It came out in
Oh,
1928. So sliced bread predates George
That's so
Mikan. All
funny.
yeah.
right, so
Oh
you
my
missed on
god.
that one. All right, uh, all right, Jack. Jerry West versus ciabatta bread.
Oh my god. Um
Different
damn,
kind of bread.
ciabatta bread. Bread's old, man, but that's just like I'm thinking of any bread. Ciabatta's I'm gonna say ciabatta comes. You know what? Fuck
And
it.
it's a
I'm
10.
gonna say it comes after Jerry West. That would be very funny to me. So yeah, let's go after.
You're correct. Ciabatta bread was not invented until
Holy, that's actually
1982.
crazy.
How is that
Jesus.
the thing? All right. All right,
Uh,
Jackson, you got to get back in this game. Reggie Miller versus Silly Bands. Were they around while he was playing, or did they not come around till
after.
after? You're right. You're right. They came around. They came around in '06, and he retired in '05. I was trying to trick
Damn.
you. I was trying to trick you. It was only he only
Mark
missed him by
Jackson's
a
on the
year.
bench.
He might have won a. He might have won a ring if he might have won a ring if Silly Bands were invented while he was still
Yeah.
playing.
Someone's
Yeah.
distracted by his cool T Rex,
All
and they're
right.
like,
All
"Oh
right.
fuck, he just pulled up from 30 on me. Damn it."
All right, Mr. Star. Vince Carter versus lighters.
What the hell do you mean? What do you mean?
Were lighters invented before he entered the NBA?
Were lighters invented after Vince Carter
Okay,
or
well,
before? Or
like when
no,
you say
during Vince Carter.
lighters, like they sent World War II soldiers out with like a Zippo lighter. Am I talking like a plastic, like yeah,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
no. Well, then you know the answer.
before.
Then it was a trick question. It was a trick
What a
question. It was a
trick!
trick question. Did you know
I
matches
didn't
were
know that.
invented
That kind of
after
makes sense though. You
lighters?
got to like put all the chemicals and like compress them into a stick and stuff. That's a lot of processing.
It's true.
All right. So this'll you're playing for a tie here, Jackson. If you don't get this,
Ugh.
you take the L.
All right.
So Julius were CDs invented when Julius Irving was still playing, or was it after?
He did in the ABA. So yeah.
He does. He
He
seems like
seems
he'd
like
have a
a guy who
CD
loves
player
CDs, huh?
carried around, AA batteries in it.
I'm gonna say CDs were invented after Julius Irving.
Well, you tied it up. CDs
Oh wow, a little earlier than I thought. I always
1982.
said like early '90s.
That's
All
it?
right. Well, that's the end. It was 3-3.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, I mean, it's not the end of the world to tie. I'm not the most.
I got to answer more. I got to answer more questions than him.
Yeah, I thought it. I planned for 3v3 tie, and then it's like showdown for the last one. But I was
I
like,
fu-
oh
I,
well.
fu- I fucked it up.
Oh man, that is so funny. What a great game, Pablo. I loved that. We just get through a solid 10 minutes here at the end of just like fuck matches, blue LEDs. What the hell?
The wheelbarrow was not invented for many, many years until after the wheel. I think like
Jeez.
hundreds or
Seems
thousands
like a
of
pretty
years.
natural
It's crazy.
extension, use it to move stuff around. But what do I know? I have the benefit of hindsight. All right. I think that
Yeah.
wraps up everything we have. A real breezy 2 hours we're clearing. So Jackson, is there anything you'd like to plug while you have the platform here?
I don't think so. I really appreciate you guys having me on. Always fun talking NBA with people who are passionate. So, yeah, I mean, I guess you can find my work on Basketball Insiders. Only really writing 1 to 2 things a week. Just other than that, just watching games and hanging out and trying to enjoy basketball as much as I can. But that's usually pretty easy because it's an enjoyable sport to enjoy. I have a way with words, as
Yes,
you
an
can tell.
enjoyable sport to enjoy. Hell yeah. He usually gets a couple edits on the closing lines, so don't judge him on his off the cuff shit. Go follow me. I'm at JokicJoestar on pretty much every platform. Click like, subscribe. Go subscribe to Hot Tunes TV China. Hot Tunes TV, yeah, as opposed to
How
the
to
other
TV
one.
China
Sorry,
NBA.
that's my fault. He's a subdivision of Hot Tunes TV China. So, yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.